Okay, so I was looking at my credit report today, and I noticed I had a repo from I want to say 2022, 21, somewhere up in there, but
Uh-huh.
it showed on my report like I think Experian and TransUnion got like 29,000, equifax got like 18,000, but at the bottom like where it say balance old and all that, like it's
Mm-hmm.
zero across all the way across the board. So when I look at the report and I want to try to dispute that, what would be the best way to dispute that, or is that considered as a? I mean, I know it's a disputable process, but what would be the
Mm-hmm.
best way?
To be honest with
What is your thought on like debt settlement programs along with this or without this or what? Because this is my situation. I unfortunately have had credit most of my life. I'm now going to turn 50.
mm-hmm.
And just recently, I kind of fell into a situation where I kind of fell into the trick like, oh, well, you get into a debt settlement thing, you can get out 2, 3 years, 4 years, you're done. And I fell into it because of so many people that were like pushing it and saying like, yeah, it works. Then I've spoken to some other people that are in the credit repair industry. They're like, no, there's no way, there's no reason to do that. And if you do it, there's other ways to go about it, even within like their program. Like we work on doing this as well. What are your thoughts on debt settlement and whether that's an option that some people should really consider or not do at all?
My question is geared more towards post-credit repair efforts. So just curious if you have any guidance on strategy or maybe sequence of how best to approach funding, business funding, particularly like if one credit bureau has removed virtually like all the negative items and your score looks amazing. And I'd be interested in hearing some credit options. What is if I was interested in developing a Chase Bank business relationship like from scratch, don't have an account at all, what would be the best approach to kind of begin on the right foot to have the best outcome?
Yeah, that's a great question. So hello, good evening, everyone. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask now. We're going to give people some time to join and then we'll get started. But if you have any questions or anything that you need help with, feel free.
Nicole, you might be getting into this a little bit later today, but I thought I'd ask since I kind of caught to this yesterday. I'm new. I started yesterday and I actually started or got the program while you guys were on the live Zoom, so I only got like the last 30-40 minutes of it.
Okay, yeah.
But
well, welcome.
Thank you. So I noticed that you said that you do use Credit Repair Cloud, but
yes.
I think you use a different credit reporting platform instead of like, I think you don't use Credit Hero. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, I don't use Credit Hero. I've always either used Smart Credit or 𝑀yScore.IQ.
Got it. Okay.
And it's nothing against Credit Hero Score, but I only need one company that can provide Vantage, and Vantage can be very misleading, which, the only one that is a FICO is 𝑀yScore.IQ. The rest of those options that's compatible with Credit Repair Cloud, they're all Vantage 3.0 systems. So, I love Smart Credit and I've always been with them since the beginning, but, then you kind of you realize how, people are disappointed when they see their credit scores on there compared to their FICO scores, or, they'll check Experian and be like, oh my God, my scores are so different. Why? And you have to break it down like, oh man, those are not a FICO score.
Got you. Okay. That makes total sense. And I thank you for explaining that to me. I'm fairly new to this. I'm excited to get all this knowledge and from you. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for sure.
Yeah, that's exciting. Hi, Ebony. Welcome.
And do you have like a link or a referral code so we can jump on my would you say my Credit IQ or something like that? Is that what it is?
I have one that is for Upsell Nation that I can send you. That's the one that I recommend because number one is they have a ton of different options in Upsell Nation, and you can become an affiliate with 𝑀yScore.IQ inside of Upsell Nation, and they have an option to where you can basically do like the 7-day $1 trial, and it's a $25 flat payout. Or you can do the, monthly commission side of it. Me, for my score IQ, I just give everyone like the $25 flat rate because like even with Smart Credit, I paid to get white labeled with them a long time ago. So I was making like $15 per client per month. But a lot of those other sites, they only pay like $5 to $7 per month that they're a paying customer.
Right.
So it's like you might as well just get that one-time $25 payout because it's a better option, in my opinion.
Sure.
And that way, it's also a FICO scoring system that is compatible with Credit Repair Cloud. And inside of the community, if you guys go to this little welcome section, there is click more. You click on Upsell Nation, and this will take you to sign up to become an affiliate. It's completely free. And they have a bunch of different programs in here, not just like credit monitoring, but they also have credit building products. They have a ton of different stuff in there. This is one of my favorite affiliate platforms.
Got you. Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, because it makes it's so hard when you have all these different affiliate links and they're all over the place. You've got Self, you've got Credit Strong, you've got all these different links. Well, in Upsell Nation, they pretty much have like all the basic credit builder programs all in one location. So you don't have to log into a million platforms to figure out what your commission is.
Got you. Thank you.
Yeah. And what I do is I put my affiliate links in like a free ebook. So like in the credit community, I give you guys some of the digital products that you can use, especially like in your own business. But you can go down to ebooks or digital products. I'm sorry, create your digital product. And there should be one in here on how to build credit. Yep. Number 8, you open this up inside of Canva. And essentially, you should be able to like make a copy of this so it's inside of your Canva account. And you'll see that I have like different credit builder options in here. So what you want to do is just put all of your affiliate links, like, get your credit reports, apply for this, apply for that. And if, it's a new program, you can modify it or whatnot, and give this to people for free. I use this as a lead magnet. So if someone does sign up for credit reports or clicks on any of the links inside of here, it's essentially all of your affiliate links.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Glad to hear. You know what? I also just want to get you heads up. I also signed up because I think I heard you say somewhere that you're based in California. Is that correct?
Yep, I sure am.
Okay. So that makes sense. Because sometimes like I didn't want to hook up with somebody that's like out of state and maybe, obviously rules and regulations and laws work a little different.
Yeah.
So obviously getting the info from somebody that does business in my state for me was important.
Yeah. What part of California are you in?
Southern California. So I'm in actually the LA area. Small city called West Covina.
Yep, I've heard of it. Yep, that's cool. I'm in Northern California, but I visit Southern a lot, so I'm familiar with it. Well, welcome. I'm excited to have you. It's excited that you're getting started in this because there's a huge market for people that need help with credit because this is not something that is taught to anybody in school. A lot of people, for whatever reason, they sometimes feel ashamed or embarrassed to talk to people about credit, which they shouldn't be because this is not something that is common to us. It's not taught in school or any of that. We just have to figure it out as life goes on. So if you guys haven't checked out the classroom section, definitely want to. I know it might look different like on your mobile phone, but if you guys have a laptop or a computer, you can log in that way as well and just head over to the second tab. The first one is the community. The second one is the classroom section, and start going through these different classrooms because there's so much information in here about, personal credit, business credit, funding, email marketing, social media, lot of stuff. And even this stuff is always changing. So even maybe some of the stuff that was recorded last year with regards to like business address, like we went over last night, we don't want to get virtual business addresses from just any virtual business place. We want to get them either from an actual office place that rents out individual offices, or just use your home address, and then you can use your registered agent's address on your Secretary of State filings and, your address where it's listed online, because the virtual business addresses that are with like Opus and Regis and all of those $99 to $200 business offices, a lot of them are tagged or flagged as fraud in systems. homes. So even if you go and try to open up a bank account, business bank account with that address, chances are the bank's going to not really say anything to you, but they're just going to say, oh, we're not able to use that address. Let's use your home address instead. And, they don't ever tell you why, so you might not think much of it. Well, that's because the address is like flagged. It's no good. They know it's not a real business address. Nowadays, people are getting funding just using their home address. And I went over this last night with one of the guys that I've been working with for a long time. We do a lot of business together, and he was telling me that he was able to get $95,000 business line of credit through, Bank of Nevada is a West Coast bank, so they primarily serve California and Nevada, but he used his home address because it's a home-based business, and the banks are not mad at that. They would much rather you use your home address versus crappy virtual business address. Like if you're going to use a commercial address, it needs to be real. It needs to be a brick and mortar location that doesn't have a million other businesses registered there. You can share an office space with someone else, or you can actually rent an office space from a building that, rents out individual offices, which, is very common. And some people do it when they're going through like SBA funding because that's a little bit more harsher. But, when you're dealing with a lot of these banks with credit cards, and lines of credit, it's totally okay to use your home address. And I think you're going to get a lot further with funding. I didn't even realize my camera's off. You're going to get a lot further with funding if you use your home address because they don't like a lot of those virtual business addresses anymore. All right, so I think we're going to get started. Tonight we're going to talk more about, starting a credit repair business and being able to make money online, essentially. And a lot of things have changed, in the credit repair space within the last few years because, for a while, Credit Repair Cloud was like under heat by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and they had gotten into some trouble with them, I guess. And so that's kind of, sparked up a lot of changes in the industry, right? So now, per the, telephone laws with essentially telemarketing, we as credit repair specialists or agents, however you want to classify yourself, we're not able to do free phone calls to pitch somebody over the phone anymore. So we have to be careful. If you are going to start a credit repair business, they don't allow phone sales anymore because so many people were getting sold over the phone. It sounded so good. How can someone ever resist, right? And a lot of people do that, and it's just not right. And we have to be careful giving people false information. We don't want to set their expectations to be unrealistic. And at the same time, we want to set those expectations of being realistic from the gate, not over promising. You want to under promise and over deliver, right? So when someone asks, how long is it going to take? We never know. To be honest with you, we can tell them, hey, a general time frame for someone to get back to where they want to be could be anywhere from 3 to 12 months or more. It just depends, because this whole thing didn't happen overnight. And no matter how many videos you saw online of people saying this, that, and the other, 14 days, 30 days, all those time frames that people get stuck in their mind, it's just not realistic, right? You still have to build credit, establish credit. So there's much more than just cleaning up the negative items, right? So setting those expectations to be realistic with the client up front. If someone only has a few things, then it's probably not going to take them that long. So you can say, well, generally in some cases like yourself, I would say a realistic time frame would be anywhere from 3 to 6 months, but you're still going to have to focus on paying all your bills on time, establishing new credit accounts to establish history. You might have to buy some trade lines, those type of things that we're being realistic with someone up front, right? And then someone's also going to say, well, is this guaranteed? No, nothing about the process can be guaranteed. We can't guarantee any type of one result for someone. But what we tell them is, this is a process. I'm going to give you the game plan, and you're going to, along with me, execute, take action, and make sure that we're, working towards the end goal, which is removing the negative information, clearing up the negative information, and sometimes paying the negative information, right? Because in this day and age, again, setting those expectations of reality up front, it's very different now. There's a lot of technology out there that makes it hard for people to just get all these accounts wiped off their credit. And a lot of times, if, say, for example, someone is doing like shady business and they're saying, oh yeah, we, sweep everything off your credit in 30 days or less, right? So say all that stuff comes off of your credit. The chances of it returning are very high, okay? Because what they're doing is they're essentially probably just doing like a fake police report. And if you have been a victim of identity theft, or if you've been a victim of like human trafficking, they have to delete or block those items from the credit report within 4 business days. So that's what's happening, right? But on the back end and behind the scenes, they're actually investigating it to see if that account truly belongs to you and if they can connect the dots. And sometimes they can and sometimes they can't. But they will put those accounts back on your credit report once they, have verified that it may belong to you. Whether it does or does not, you at the end of the day, you just have to keep on fighting. But I always tell people, you can't run from all of your past. In some things, it just makes sense to just clear up, okay? Because a lot of times when you're dealing with charge-offs with the original creditor, so say I had a credit card with Bank of America and it went south for $500 and I never paid it, right? And now every month, Bank of America is reporting that $500 balance on my card. And I've disputed it and it just won't go away because at the end of the day, it is yours or mine, right? So I always recommend clients to just pay that stuff so that way it won't affect our future, because I would hate for something to come back and bite you in the butt later on. That's just not what we want. We want to fix things up the right way so things don't come back and haunt us. And number 2, you're going to respect the process a lot more, because those type of things, I understand hardships happen, but one thing that we have to do that we probably didn't do in the past is put our credit as a priority, all right? And have that same expectations for our clients. We have to put our credit as a priority. A lot of times when people, they're not prioritizing their credit because they think, oh, I can just go pay $1,000 for someone to fix my credit and I'll be back in the game. It doesn't work like that anymore. It takes a lot longer. It's a lot harder to get things off, and you don't respect the process. If you have good credit, it's going to take time. And when someone gets an 800 credit score, it's because they have the amount of history showing, hey, this person can manage their credit. This person can pay their bills on time, right? And what a lot of people, especially people that I help with their credit, one common thing that I see is people that have late payments. And that's something that just cannot happen, right? Especially because not only do we get that 30-day cushion to where they don't report a late payment, but we have to pay that late fee. A lot of times you can get that late fee reversed once it's paid and brought to current, but you're not going to get an actual 30-day late until it's been 30 days past that due date, which we never want to allow to happen. We want to put at minimum auto pay on, make sure that's on, make sure all of our clients have auto pay on for at least the minimum. So there's no chance that any account that's on our credit report will be paid late. Now, accounts that are not on your credit report, not on client's credit report, they can be paid late. A lot of times utility bills, they can work with you. They can set up a payment plan. You can pay those late. They don't report to your credit report, right? Phone bills, a lot of those type of things sometimes have some wiggle room, and especially like utilities, garbage, water, electric, a lot of those places will work with you. But one thing, they don't report to our personal credit reports unless, we just don't pay at all. And then it goes to collections, right? That's a different story, but it can happen. But nonetheless, we want to have our mindset properly trained so that way we can instill that same mindset into our clients, that paying our bills on time, that report to the credit is a priority. No matter what type of hardship we are going through, sometimes, making a minimum payment is, very minimal. It's only, maybe $10, $20, something like that, right? But making sure that we are keeping up with all of those things and not overextending ourselves, because that's one thing that I did when I first started was I got way too many credit builders at once. And although I didn't get a late payment, I see people doing the same thing and they do get late payments. So that's why, I've talked to you guys about this in the past. When it comes to helping people build credit, it's like, yeah, some of those credit builders are helpful, but most of them we can probably skip. We want to focus on quality credit builders from real financial institutions and credit unions. If someone can do like a secured loan, those are great. Those don't cost a hard inquiry, right? With secured credit cards, major banks like Discover, I would probably only have a few that I like to go to. Discover It because it graduates after 7 months. I like Bank of America secured card because it's Bank of America and everyone knows their name, right? The downside about Bank of America is it takes forever to graduate. I know people that have had that card for years and it still just doesn't go anywhere. So we want to be prepared that, when we open up a secured credit card, we cannot close that thing. Okay. So that's why if you can get in with Discover It, that would be a better option. I don't like to waste a secured credit card from like a credit union because, they take a while to graduate, but then it's like, you could go after the secured loan first and that's no inquiry. And yeah, you have to have the money in your savings account, but even if you just do the minimum, which a lot of times is just a few $100, that would help versus the secured credit card where your money's locked away. You don't have access to it. In many cases, the secured credit card only goes up to maybe a $5,000 limit anyways. But, say you need that money back, you'd have to close it. So we want to avoid doing that and try to just go the secured loan route with the credit unions that do offer those secured loan programs versus wasting a credit product on a secured credit card. A bank that doesn't require a relationship to get that secured credit card, like Discover, Bank of America. And there's so many more out there, but we just don't want those like super crappy banks like First Progress and just those no-name banks that not only are we like paying them a crap ton for everything, but a lot of times they have, fees just to be a card holder with them. I know like Credit One, which I'm not a huge fan of, even though I have it just because it has history with it. There's like an $8 fee every month that I have to pay just to like have the card, which is silly because it always has like an $8 balance. So those type of things that are just ridiculous, it's like, let's just skip those, even though some people might say, well, I need, some credit products. You can do a couple secured loans, maybe a credit builder like Credit Strong, that would be a loan too. But if you build up your relationships with the banks properly, you probably can get a credit card with them, no problem. In fact, we had someone from the community last year that he built up a really good relationship with Navy Fed. Didn't have the greatest credit score. I don't even think his credit score was 600, to be honest with you. $15,000 credit card because he built the relationship up with the bank. You hear about people saying, oh, well, I've got approved with bad credit. And that is a real thing because people build relationships with the banks. And that's something that I had no idea about before I learned about credit. The banks don't tell you. Nobody tells tells you how to properly build relationships with the banks. And that's another really important factor that we need to share with our clients, because they think, well, I just have one bank account and I've had them forever. And, maybe it's Chase or Bank of America. And, it's like, well, we got to spread our wings. We have to try to find some credit unions, whether those are local or national. A lot of people don't even think that they can join Navy Federal when in fact they can, because they don't realize that maybe they had an uncle or a grandfather that served, and that gets them, qualified for membership, believe it or not. So when I first joined Navy Federal, I got in because of my grandfather and my uncle were both in the Navy, and that qualified me for membership. A lot of people think you have to be a service member. Nope, it's for service members and their families, and I didn't have to provide any proof. So a lot of times clients are not familiar with how Navy Federal work, and they are probably like my favorite bank to join because they have the pledge loan, they give credit cards to bad credit, they do car loans, you don't have to put anything out of pocket. So it's a great financial institution for you to introduce your clients to as well, because a lot of people want to buy a car, want to buy a home, they want a credit card, they want high limit credit cards, but they've never had a high limit credit card, or maybe they don't have any credit cards. That's fine as long as you understand how to build the relationship. And we've talked about this before, and I actually have a guide inside of the community that talks about building up, how to build up your relationship. So quick overview, 5 banking products or more, right? Checking account, savings account. If you can do some sort of CD account, some banks have a higher minimum than others because you won't have access to that CD account, which is a certificate of deposit. It's kind of like a savings account, and you just opt for them to keep it and you earn interest every month, but it's a time frame. And say you do like 18 months or 2 years, you won't have access to those funds. And if you have an emergency, they penalize you for it. So kind of locked away for a certain period, just kind of earning interest in there. But the bank, they make a lot of money off money that sits in their bank. So they like those type of accounts. Not required, but something that you can do as a bank account to earn some interest for yourself. High yield saving accounts that you can do. You always want to make sure that you have signed up for overdraft protection, because in the event that there's not enough money in your checking account, say for example, you have all your credit cards on auto pay, but for whatever reason, maybe when that charge finally hits your account, there's not enough in there. Well, that's okay, because if you have overdraft protection set up, it's not going to overdraft your account, but rather it's going to take it from your savings account so you don't get that ding. Because one of the worst things that you can do when building a relationship with a bank is to get an overdraft in your bank account, because it's detrimental. I think I may have shared with you guys the story of how I was working with somebody and I got his credit scores up to all over 700 and they were good. And then he needed an auto loan and he was with Navy Federal. So I had him call Navy Federal, did the auto loan over the phone. And when the decision finally came back, it was about like 6 hours later or so, they denied him. And I was so shocked because I'm like, your credit score is good. I said, well, have you had any overdrafts with Navy Federal? And he said, yeah. So he actually had a lot of overdrafts, especially in the last 12 months. And what that does is it just kills your internal rating, your internal score with Navy Federal or any bank for that matter. They're all the same concept. All these banks and credit unions, same concept. You get in, you build that relationship. If you can have some sort of direct deposit, even if it's just a small percentage of your check, just so it's something constantly being deposited into that account, that really works as well. Because I'm not sure if I told you recently, but I got a home improvement loan and I kind of did this, strategically, because when I first opened my SoFi account, I was like, you know what? I'm probably going to need a loan for my backyard when I get my new house. I'll need a home improvement loan. And I applied with them and Navy Federal, but I focused on building up a good relationship with SoFi. And I really just had checking account, savings account, and then I have small amount, maybe like $200 or $300 being deposited into the checking account every other week. And so I just let the money sit in there. I don't use the debit card. I just let it sit and marinate. And then I did that for probably about 6 months or so. Then I finally, I was getting their offers. Like you're going to start, with most banks, you'll start getting their offers. And I didn't bite the first time. It took me a while. And then I finally went through the process and they gave me $35,000. No documents, no proof of income, none of that. So that's one of my favorite methods. And what I really teach my clients as well is how to build relationships, not overextending yourself, because it can get messy, but start spreading your wings and opening up more bank accounts that we can potentially get funding with in the future. Because if someone's goal is to get a car or whatever, high limit credit card, Navy Federal is going to be a great starting point for that because they have those high limit credit cards. And say your client's like, I don't have any credit, so I don't have anything, which, is just as bad as no credit. Well, that's great because you can have them work the relationship with Navy, do a pledge loan. Once they've been there for 3 months or so, you add 1 to 2 high limit credit trade lines to their credit profile, right? So that gives them some comparable credit. And then you have them go through the pre-approval process of the credit cards and see if you can get them a couple credit cards because someone can get up to $80,000 with Navy Federal and you can get up to 3 cards. But I recommend, trying to stick to 2 cards. Even for myself, my first credit card with Navy Federal was only $500. So I was super disappointed. But then my second one was like 20 something thousand and then 20 something thousand. And then basically you just ask for the credit limit increases every 3 to 6 months. And then eventually you'll get maxed out. Now, like we were talking about last night, that method has kind of changed a bit because now Navy Federal is kind of 6 months. They like to see that 6-month period. They're very kind of sensitive to those new accounts as well, as a lot of these banks are. Like Lightstream, they are kind of sensitive to accounts that have been opened in the last 6 months. So you just kind of want to push yourself to try to make it to that 6-month period versus that 3-month period, but they no longer have inside of the app where you can actually request the amount that you want inside of the app, which again, you're not going to get a hard credit pull. They're going to just give you what they give you. It might just be $1,000 increase or $500 increase. And you're like, no, I don't want that. I want, 20,000. In that case, you're probably better off calling in over the phone and asking a rep, is there a way that I can increase my limit to whatever, 10,000 more, 5,000 more, because I'm buying furniture or whatever you're doing, right? But that way you can request an amount and say you need it for a specific reason. And of course, it is going to be a hard pull when you talk to someone, but it's worth it if you get a $10,000 increase on your credit cards and then eventually max out at 80,000. Sorry, I know that was a lot, but part of the whole expectations, because if you really want to give someone a great experience working with you, it's not just about, credit repair, because at the end of the day, what credit repair is very simple. It's you sending dispute letters to the credit bureaus and the creditors on behalf of somebody else because maybe they don't want to do it, right? That's what credit repair is. When someone signs up for Lexington Law, nowadays, they're not even allowed to do phone sales due to these new laws. Before, people would call in, they would talk to a sales rep, and they would get signed up for Lexington Law. And funny story is they got actually in trouble with the CFPB in the last few years as well. And even myself, I got a refund check in the mail from them. I was like, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that. They have to do everything online now. So your process essentially needs to be an online process for someone to sign up, which is very easy inside of Credit Repair Cloud, right? But how do you do that without breaking the law, right? You have to create content around it. That's the short end of it, right? A lot of people now, they will use the automation tools that are inside of Credit Repair Cloud. They have a new marketing hub that is hosted inside of 𝑔𝗲𝗹𝒊𝒕. So that really does help with a lot. And then between that and if you go under the My Company tab, they have website tools that you can plug into any type of website that you're using. They have a template website that you can, use, but if I were you, I would probably just host my website inside of like 𝒂𝒲𝗹𝒊𝒕, or if you're not sure, or maybe you already have a website with like Wix or WordPress or whatever, they give you the forms and you just put this code right on your website and people can sign up right from your website. So if you're one of those folks that are comfortable with the camera, you're going to just need to make content like, hey, if you want to sign up for credit repair, go to my website, click on sign up, fill out the form, and it's that easy, right? And I actually had a couple people that signed up this week with me. Same thing. They went to my website, they signed up, and I don't even really advertise for credit repair anymore. But, I used to a lot prior. Now it just makes it so much easier because you don't have to have phone calls. And in fact, you're not allowed to have sales phone calls, but you are allowed to, have a call with someone once they have signed up for your service. So there's a few things that's like pros and cons with their self-service client sign up system. They have this where, basically self-service, kind of like exactly what it sounds like. But the thing that I don't like about this is it says that it's not going to charge the client for like 30 days or something, which is not a requirement, right? And they have a lot of information inside of Credit Repair Cloud about the TSR, which is the telemarketing sales rule. And basically, if you decided to do the self sign up, on the preview page, it says start for $0, right? So this allows someone to basically sign up with you so you can have a phone call with them. But then, you have to collect payment. So that can be kind of a headache. In credit repair, per the law, it says that you're not allowed to charge someone a large upfront fee. So people that are normally charging someone like $1,500, that's not supposed to be happening. People that are charging like $1,000, again, that's not supposed to be happening, right? So what I do is I charge $299 to sign up and then $99 a month after that, because essentially what credit repair is just sending letters out on behalf of your client. And a lot of times, we will also create like the PDF files for our clients so they can upload them online, because if they start getting those emails from Experian saying, oh, we received something, but we don't think it's from you, they need to get that PDF file, which has all their dispute stuff, their ID. I make it into one large PDF file for them to just go and upload. And I'll have like a Loom video that I show my clients like, hey, watch this video, fill out, information on page 1, then on page 2, upload and click submit. Very, very easy, right? But I put it all together for them. So it's, they wouldn't have known how to do that without being a part of the credit repair program, right? I personally skip the self-service sign-up one, and I just use their web tools, which allows someone to pay right then and there. Because let's be honest, like credit repair is a lot of work, right? And if you want to help someone, they need to make that investment, right? And you can have your own program as far as what you charge. I'm not telling you that you have to charge $299 or anything. This is for informational purposes only, okay? But say you're just getting started and you're like, you know what? I just want to charge maybe $199 to start and then $99 a month. Well, that $199 is for document processing. Okay, that's basically to set them all up, process their credit report, have a call with them so that way you can discuss their credit report. It's very important that you start getting familiar with reading these reports, becoming familiarized with the data, because that's going to help your confidence, especially when you're talking to people maybe that you don't know and that are, just met you online or got referred to you, because you're going to need that practice. And that's something that really helped me early on because, when I first started, we were able to have calls with people. So I did tons and tons of free phone calls. Sometimes I would do up to like 10 free phone calls a day. And boy, I got more than enough practice. But it really helped me understand the data on these reports and how to read all of the different platforms that people use, because everyone uses different stuff. Some people just have Credit Karma. Some people have Smart Credit or MyFICO or Experian. And it's important for you to get familiarized with all of those different platforms. But I would recommend using the website tools because you can have the lead form and you can have an affiliate sign up. You have your login, client login, and you can put that button right on your website and link it to the secure client access portal. So all of these little codes you can put right on your website. So that way it's very easy for people to sign up, very easy for people to access their secure portal. And if you want to do a website, like I said, you can either do the website inside of your Go High Level account, which is what I would do if I was doing it all over, because you don't want to have to pay for all of these different platforms. I have to pay for like Wix and Acuity because I signed up and, established my systems and processes for everything way before all of this was available. But nonetheless, if you already have things that are like working for you and you don't want to change them, that's okay as well, because you can use Zapier to transfer the data, right? So Zapier is a tool that basically transfers data from one platform to another. So what I have to do is I have to connect Credit Repair Cloud to my calendar through Zapier. So Zapier just transfers the data from my calendar over to Credit Repair Cloud. So everyone that books a call with me, because I don't provide free phone calls and I'm not pitching anyone on a phone call. People book calls with me because they're paying for a coaching service. And a lot of times when someone's asking for credit repair, I don't pitch them on it. I say, look, you can do it yourself. It's better that you do it yourself, right? And my last option is really to try to sell someone on credit repair, because it's just more, I feel like it's better when it comes from that person, because the credit bureaus are looking at all that stuff, right? But I get it. Some people don't have the time, and that it is what it is. But if you're selling credit repair, you just can't do that via phone call. You can do it on DMs. You can do it with text messages, but they would actually have to sign up for service, and then you can have that phone call with them. And some people, I've talked to a lot of different people that are in this space, they don't offer a phone call. A client will have a booking link that they can book calls with their team as needed if they have questions, but you certainly don't have to offer phone calls. Like, for example, we do not offer phone calls. Everything is via email. They can message you inside of the client portal here. So inside of Credit Repair Cloud, all of your clients can message you. So that's another way. But for us, we prefer email. So we have a support email, and we have all of our clients email everything into us, and that's where we do all of our communications at. So it's not like you have to have a phone call with everyone. You certainly don't. And it's crazy too, because Credit Repair Cloud, when they first came out, they didn't have any phone support whatsoever. So that's why they have all these training videos to kind of teach people. But now they're starting to offer, phone calls and training. So if you did at any point feel like you needed Credit Repair Cloud's help, I believe you can schedule a phone call with them. But you want to be careful what you buy into with them, because at the end of the day, they are a software company, And while they've built this amazing software for us to leverage and start our business, it's kind of like a business in a box, if you will. They are very salesy, and they're always trying to push like their big ticket programs and trainings. And, I fell for it. I paid for it. Honestly, it was not worth it because at the end of the day, they're not supposed to be giving information on credit repair. And that's why they got in trouble in the first place, because they're very salesy. They're claiming to be a software company. Well, software companies can't tell you right and wrong or how to run a credit repair business. So basically they've had to really change things and really just, focus on the software. So it's not like they pitch it to be, believe me. And you would probably learn more on your own if you focused on getting more clients into Credit Repair Cloud that you can practice with and learn with, because the more that you do it, the better that you get. And it's frustrating because I know it's like when we first start Credit Repair Cloud, we're like overwhelmed, but this is probably one of the easiest platforms to use with all of the other credit repair business in a box, like credit dispute Fox or credit dispute manager, CDM, dispute Fox, all of those, credit admiral. They're all just overwhelming. Okay. Credit Repair Cloud is the most straightforward, easy to use system. And it just keeps getting better with time, especially like the marketing hub. It's included in the $179 a month that you guys pay as, for having this software. And they do have, a few months in the beginning where you can get discounted pricing. So if you go up to the admin section and you go say to cancel your account, you can go through like, hey, I want to cancel because it's, too expensive. And then they'll offer you 3 months, I think at like $149. So it's basically like $50 a month for 3 months. That's a pretty good deal. You get the 30-day trial, then you can request the discounted pricing for 3 months. That's 4 months, and then pay the full price at $179. The only downside is, if you are paying a discounted price, you might not have access to all of the features inside of the software. Like the free version, you don't have access to the letter library, which is not the end of the world, because, you can create your own custom letters inside of the letter library. And that's what I would recommend that you do anyways, because it is like the letters that they have in here, they're super old. They've already kind of been flagged as like cookie cutter letters, and they're just not the greatest. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys tonight how to put in your own custom letters and kind of build up your own custom library. Because once you have a functioning letter that is going to just automate everything for you and automatically populate everything from that client's profile, it's good to go, and it doesn't take much time after that. So I'm also going to show you in the same letter that we do tonight, we'll process a client's file. I'll kind of show you how easy it is to, use this whole software. It's actually, in my opinion, this is what helped me create my business, because I wouldn't have been able to do it without this type of software. I mean, I can't imagine thinking about, doing all of this stuff manually. And I know that's how we all used to do it before we had software. But this tool makes it so you save so much time, you're organized, you have all of your clients' information in there. It helps you stay compliant because with all of your clients, you send the agreement, you watch the progress, you make sure, if for whatever reason you don't see them sign the agreement, you can send them a note, hey, don't forget to sign your agreement, upload your documents. Everything's done through the secure portal, and it's very user friendly. So I always recommend starting with yourself and then trying to pick a few people around you that might need help. The only thing is, people that get it for free, sometimes they don't always take it super serious and they don't want to pay anything. But, try to find a few people around you where you can sign up for Upsell Nation. You can share the MyScoreIQ link with them and just make $25 flat every time someone signs up for the credit monitoring. And boom, that's $25 per person right there, right? And that's going to give you a little bit of money and also a lot of experience. I wouldn't say you probably need more than like 3 people that you're going to help, because it can get very overwhelming. But, start with yourself, maybe 2 to 3 people around you, add those folks in as clients. And I want you to go through the client experience as well, because the way that Credit Repair Cloud has kind of built their system, they know a lot of people work from their cell phones. So when you get the agreement sent to you, you can click on it. They'll be able to take pictures of like their, utility bill, ID, and upload those right to the client profile. And the nice thing is, if someone's like, well, I don't know how to do it, they can send you the documents as well, and you can do it for them on the back end. The whole process here is super easy. And if someone can't do that, it's like, oh my goodness, you might have issues with them following instructions. So any questions up until now on Credit Repair Cloud? I know we just went over another Credit Repair Cloud video that I'm still getting edited. Those ones take really long because we have to edit out all of the personal information from the credit report. So that video is almost done, and I'll be able to post that one for you. But in that video, I showed you guys a lot about, the clients, which we'll see again tonight. And the more that you see it, the more familiarized you're going to get with Credit Repair Cloud. But, the basic tabs that you guys can focus on are these all at the top, because these are basically like your company tabs, essentially. And then when you get into your client tabs, you'll realize there's a whole nother set of tabs. You don't really need to focus on the dashboard too much, not much over there. Creditor and furnisher, this is basically all of the imported data from the credit reports on different banks, financial institutions, and people that furnish data to the credit bureaus. Your affiliates, this is, people that you might work with that are going to refer business to you. Real estate agents, mortgage brokers, people that work in similar fields that have a need for your service, right? Kind of funny story is the gentleman that I was working with when I bought my home, he was like, I want to partner with you on some like credit stuff because I've got a ton of people, and right now I send them to a lady in Atlanta. And I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting, because Atlanta is illegal for credit repair. So technically speaking, if you are not a nonprofit institution or nonprofit corporation, meaning you're not looking to make a profit off these people, you have the invested interest of actually helping them. They had to make that a law in Georgia because so many people were getting scammed. They were charging thousands and thousands of dollars for credit repair, and then, obviously not producing the results, right? So now you have to be a nonprofit organization in Georgia in order to help people. If you're not providing like credit repair, but you're providing like services, maybe coaching, that's a little bit different, because you can still provide coaching to someone that's in Atlanta, whether you talk about personal credit or business credit. It's not like you're promising them, these credit repair results that, may or may not happen. But the letter library, this has, all of their letters in it, and then you will put your own letters in there. You can see that you can create different folders. I have created a folder in here called New Custom Letters, and that's where I put all of my own custom letters and kind of build up from there. And I'll try to add new letters in usually every like 6 months or so. And you can format them, and I'll show you guys how in just a second. And then we've got billing and payments. So you can now set up payments in Credit Repair Cloud. So for a while, they did not have the option available to people. And unless you were like grandfathered in, like I signed up for their billing like many, many, many years ago. In fact, I was using like chargebee, which is from, 5-6 years ago. And so it was grandfathered in. So the whole time that everyone else, didn't have access to billing, I still had it, and people that still used chargebee still had it. So now they actually have a new system to where you can connect via authorized.net to your merchant account. So they actually changed it a few different times since this came back. So now they offer you to connect to authorized.net, but I don't know if I think it is up, because if you apply for one of their merchant accounts, it's they're not the best. Okay. These are the three merchant accounts that they kind of promote right now. One is 5 Star Processing, which they're almost impossible to get a hold of. Okay. eCrypt, which is formerly Bank Card USA. They're pretty good. In all honesty, I would go with Bank Card USA if you don't already have a merchant account, because Bank Card USA is really, they're fine with credit repair. Okay. Yes, they are considered high risk. You're going to be paying a little bit more, but any of these high risk merchant accounts, you're going to pay a monthly fee for. If you have a merchant account with your bank, like Chase or Bank of America or whatever bank, and then you connect it through authorized.net, you can do that as well. So you don't have to have one of these banks or one of these merchant accounts, but these are merchant accounts that are, credit repair friendly, and you will not have any issues with them processing payments. And then there's Coastal Pay, which I think Coastal Pay is just too expensive, and they have too many scenarios that I'm just not okay with. So I would say, eCrypt, formerly Bank Card USA, is going to be your best option. The only thing about them is they don't like large transactions. So everything with them needs to be less than like $500, which if you're new to credit repair, you shouldn't be charging someone more than that anyways, right? So if you do like $199 to start and then $99 a month or whatever plan you decide that you're going to go with, you can set that up and it will be basically on autopilot through Credit Repair Cloud once it's all connected and all that good stuff. So, and you can even use this as a startup credit repair business. So it's nice. And it's a lower monthly fee as well, between $55 and possibly $80. And even for myself, I still have to pay $99 a month with ChargeBee. So, wherever you go that has, processing for these type of businesses, you're going to be looking at a monthly, fee just to have the account, unfortunately. And then if you sign up for a processor, which is a gateway, which right now their gateway is authorized.net, and then now you can do NMI. So Bank Card USA, which is now eCrypt, they connect via NMI. So that's kind of perfect because, or whatever merchant account you have, they're usually compatible with either authorized.net or NMI. And basically what a gateway does is it just connects the two accounts. So it connects Credit Repair Cloud with your merchant account. So that way they can communicate with each other and work together and process all of the payments. So you will need that gateway set up. But if you sign up with Bank Card, they'll get you all connected with NMI. There is another charge for those gateways. It's usually somewhere between 15 to like 20 something dollars per month. I know I had authorized.net for a while and it was maybe like $20 a month that I had to pay for that service. It probably has gone up by now, but it's not a huge expense, to be honest with you. But if you don't have any paying clients, sometimes that can be a big expense when you're not making up that money. Some people, when they're first getting started, they have other routes besides this that they go with because they just can't afford to pay for all of this stuff. And that's fine. Okay. I did the same thing. But you just need to be careful with a lot of those like invoicing companies like Square. I like Stripe for like digital products, but not necessarily credit repair. And Square, they shut me down probably within like 6 months, to be honest. And it wasn't anything bad. I refunded a client because they're like, oh, we wanted to cancel. So I was like, oh, no problem. I'll just refund you the $99. Well, I refunded them. And then that afternoon, they closed my account with no explanation. And I was freaking out because I had so many people on auto pay. So it was a really tough situation. And I was like, oh my God, I was just like heartbroken. So that's why I do recommend, if you're building your credit repair empire, do not build on a merchant account that is not credit repair friendly, because they will shut you down. It's only a matter of time. PayPal, they're not as friendly either, but I think Square is like the worst one. So, I would just go ahead and make that investment to get with eCrypt, get with the gateway, and that way you can charge people, and not be worried about your merchant account being shut down. Now, in certain states, you are going to be conducting credit repair, especially in California. You have to be mindful of the licensing that is required. There's a lot of licensing required in different states, and that require you to have, a surety bond. And surety bonds are, I think in California, you have to have $10,000, and it can be very expensive if your credit is not in good shape, because that's the same thing. When I was starting, my first client was myself, and my surety bond was going to be like thousands of dollars because my credit wasn't great. But, sometimes you can find a partner or family member that can put the surety bond in their name for the business. Kind of sometimes have to be creative in a sense. But there's, you always want to check your local state requirements. Some states don't have any requirements. Like, for example, Wyoming. If you have a credit repair business out of Wyoming, there is no licensing required. No surety bond required. So not all states have that. But, I always tell people, start the business first, work on yourself, work on your test clients before you decide that you're going to just, hey, I'm going to buy the surety bond, because you want to make sure that this is going to be something that you can see yourself doing, you enjoy doing it. Because if you don't enjoy doing this, you're not going to want to do this. Believe me, there are certain things that I just don't want to do anymore, and you have to put yourself in a position to where you're going to enjoy doing this. It's kind of like a game. And that's like, for me, I get really excited when it's time to refresh someone's credit report, because I can't wait to see the results. I'm like a little kid sometimes, like, oh, hurry up, and then it's like, oh, yes, or dang, no, nothing happened. And sometimes you'll have months like that where the credit bureaus ignore you, or they send stall tactic letters to your client. And that's normal. You just have to keep on pushing. Like we talked about last night, they use a computer system to keep up with the amount of volume that they get. All of us repairing credit repair cloud, making it so millions of people can fix credit and, get those letters sent out to the credit bureaus. So they scan everything into their system. And a lot of times it's just an automated response. And you'll notice too, like a lot of times when you get those email responses in your email box, it won't even say your first name. It just says like parentheses, because it's just a computer system that is responding. It's weird because I'll have clients that say they got a response from the credit bureau, but then the account's deleted. So it's like, what the heck is going on? And it's just weird like that. They, again, are going to try to stall you. They're going to try to just have their computer system send a letter, and you cannot let that discourage you, because it's part of the game that they play. And like we were talking about last night, you want to keep everything that they send you. Keep every response, keep every email, print it all out, keep it in a folder, or if you have a digital folder, print and save those files and build your case against them. Because in the event that they don't remove things and you've told them, you've given them the proof, you've given them ample opportunity, that's, the time when you want to say, okay, well, let's proceed with litigation, and either you partner with consumer attorneys that can potentially sue, because when you start partnering with consumer attorneys and they take over the file, they're not going to want you to send any more disputes on behalf of the client, or they're not going to want the client to send any more disputes, period. They will then take over. Your client will sign with them. They usually don't charge anything up front. It's they make money on the back end after they sue the credit bureaus or the collectors or whomever they're suing, right? But you want to make sure that your client understands if they go through that process with like a lawyer, it could be a very long process. It's not going to be fast at all. Then you have option 2, which is you can go through arbitration. And while arbitration is something that you could potentially help your clients with, obviously you're going to tell them, you're not a lawyer, you don't give legal advice. It's for informational purposes only. But the credit bureaus, they're not going to want to get to arbitration. They're going to want to just delete the trade line or settle before they even get to the round table, because they're going to have to pay someone to show up. They're going to have to pay fees and all this good stuff. They would, at the end of the day, they would much rather just delete the trade line off your credit report versus having to pay you for certain violations that you've outlined, because each violation that the credit bureaus make with regard to the Fair Credit Reporting Act, or even if they're making violations and reporting violations from the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, they have to verify and they have to ensure that data that they are reporting is 100% accurate. All right. And if not, there are several violations around that you can get these credit bureaus on. So build your case, $1,000 per violation, and then whatever damages you have experienced during the whole situation. So if you were denied credit for something because they're reporting errors, you can build a case against that and say, look, I was denied this, I lost this opportunity, which caused me this much in damages, so on and so forth, right? So there's no set amount that you can request or not request at arbitration. It's not like small claims where generally it's no more than like 10,000. I think it's always best when you're dealing with arbitration to kind of keep it under 10,000, just because they're more likely to want to just resolve it than having to pay that money anyways. And at the end of the day, that's your goal, is to get that trade line deleted. But some people actually do press the envelope and say, I'm going to get some money out of these people. No, they have caused me damages. So a lot of people will request, $3,500, $5,000, $7,000, whatever that number looks like for yourself, and the deletion of the credit trade line. And that will be their agreement. So it just kind of depends, what you want to do, what your time frame looks like. Like if you have time to go back and forth with these people, great, so be it. But if you're like, no, I want to just get it over and done with, I really don't want the money, I really just want the trade line removed from my credit report, then hey, just accept it for what it is. But those are kind of the options, right? Now, for people that are not in a rush, but they're like, I understand my credit is in a bad place. I know it's going to take some time. You got to tell people, look, we're probably looking at working with each other for a good year or so, because at the end of the day, it takes time to get all this stuff resolved, and not everything is just going to go away. Some things might need to be settled. Some things might need to just have an arrangement made with them. It kind of depends. I always tell people, let's go through the dispute process for about 6 months and see what we can get off organically. And whatever comes back verified, it's not gone in 6 months, we might need to think, hey, is it best to just pay off this charge off? Because you can still dispute the account after it's paid to get it removed. Will the bank remove it? No, not if it's from the original creditor. Collections that are from third-party agencies, they generally will be removed from your credit report once they are paid. But that's because, they didn't report initially in the first place. So once your business with them is completed, then they're no longer going to report that anymore. And, some people just have to resolve certain things and make phone calls and let them know, no, this is not correct, or whatever the case is. Because there's just been so many different situations where I've had people that have had collections on their credit and come to find out it was just, an error, or it was an overcharge. That happens a lot with like cell phone companies, insurance companies, because they'll bill you for something and not realize that, either you canceled or you did return the equipment. So there's so many different factors. And that's why it's so important just to understand sometimes your clients have to make these phone calls. You cannot make these phone calls on behalf of your clients. So that's why whenever I'm talking with my clients, I always tell them, like, you're going to be a part of the process. You're going to have to make phone calls. You might have to call the credit bureaus. You might have to call creditors. You can kind of coach them on what to say. But the last thing that you want to do is be, held up on a three-way phone call between everybody. Your client needs to understand what to say and what the goal is, and they need to do it. Okay, you cannot handhold everybody, even though we would probably, like to, and I certainly tried to when I first started. And then I quickly realized I cannot handle all of that. I cannot be on the phone all day, every day, helping people make phone calls. They have to just kind of step up to the plate and get it done. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the letter library. I would not recommend the mailing hub here, okay? Cloud Mail is great because it saves people a lot of time, all right? But it's very expensive. You can see that first class, just, black and white printed, plus 12 cents. So it's actually $1.13 per side. So let me see, $1.01 plus 12 cents per side. That can get expensive, okay? So a regular stamp now is what, like 79 cents or something like that. So you're already paying way more here, plus you're paying per side. It's better, honestly, to print and mail out, or have your clients upload online, right? Or have your clients print and mail out from their location, right? There's a bunch of different ways that you can go about doing this. But what I don't recommend is sending it out via cloud mail, because of the fact that when cloud mail arrives, they have a barcode on the letter. And when the credit bureaus scan that barcode in, it says like the location, and it usually doesn't match with the client's address. And they can tell that it's from a mail automation company just because of the barcode and the way that the letter looks. And that's a number one reason for them to send you a stall tactic letter. And I started getting a lot of stall tactic letters when I started using Cloud Mail and a lot of the mail automation services a while back. Some would go through, right? But I got a tremendous more of the stall tactic letters than what I was used to and comfortable with. So, once in a while, if I have to send like certified mail, return receipt, or certified mail to like a creditor or, something like that, then I'll use Cloud Mail. But in all honesty, I would probably just steer clear of it, because you can do it online for free. You can have your client print and mail it, which, sometimes can be good, but, you really have to stay on top of your clients and make sure that they do it, because ultimately it is better for the letters to come from their zip code, from their local postal office, okay? Especially if they do certified mail return receipt, because it's directly from them at their local postal office. Technically, if you're sending something certified mail return receipt for somebody else, it's not from them, it's from you, right? So it's not the best, because they look at all that stuff when they scan in your letters and envelopes and all that good stuff into their system. So you've got those two options. And if your client's like, no, I want you to mail it out, I don't want to do that stuff, well, you can certainly do it, but it'll come from your zip code, which, maybe they're traveling, who knows? There's unique and creative ways that you can do it. I've even gone as far as like, hey, I'm going to mail this to you. I just need you to forward it to the credit bureaus. And I have everything already labeled and all that good stuff inside of their letter. So all they have to do is just drop it in the mailbox at their local post office box. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it, but you want to, stick to the basics on this, and either certified mail return receipt or just a regular good old stamp. You do probably need to weigh your envelopes just to make sure that they don't go over the ounce, because one stamp covers 1 ounce. And sometimes if you have like a big packet, like you're sending a bunch of stuff, your letter's long, you've got a bunch of like, supporting documents that you have to send in. Sometimes though, those can be, 2 ounces. And in that case, you'd have to add additional postage on there. You can buy half stamps from the postal office box. And a lot of people always ask me how I do my stamps. I buy them at Costco because I can get, I think it's either 1 or 2% back from having a Costco business membership. And then the city card gives me another 3% back. So I buy all my stamps from Costco, and then once in a great while, probably every like 3 months or so, I'll go to the postal office and I'll buy some of those half stamps. They're like a ½ ounce stamp because a lot of our letters are like barely over an ounce, but we don't put our client's return address on the envelope. So we put the credit bureau as the return address. So we're labeling, we print out labels. I'm trying to see if I can find any. They're always around here. Buy those, labels, just address labels from like Avery. You can buy the generic ones from like Amazon. But I'll print out like, a bunch of sheets of like Experian addresses. And on our envelope, we just put that label on the to area and on the from area. So either way, it's going to the credit bureau if they try to return it or whatever. And I just use their standard addresses, and we'll just use the standard, stamped mail. And sometimes I'll add like a handwritten cover letter, and we'll staple everything together as well. So I'll put attention, and handwrite it Experian, and, write like a cover letter, and then I'll staple it to, the actual dispute letter, the proof documents, ID, social security card, proof of address that is dated within the last 30 days. You don't want to send them proof of address that is older than 60 days. So you're constantly having to get updated proof of address from your clients every couple months because they will not accept it. They do accept it once in a while because sometimes not everyone pays attention and their system doesn't always catch it, but it's always good to have, that refreshed date in there. And all that you need is like a statement, the top portion of the statement that has the company's name, the company's address, something like statement of account, right? So they can see that, your information, and then the date, that billing date. And that's pretty much all you need, whether it's a utility bill, a bank statement, insurance statement. Those are kind of like the most common. So that's what I like to get from people, because I've had clients where they've uploaded proof of address and they've literally just taken a picture of a piece of mail that they've received, and that's not going to cut it. Okay, a picture of a piece of mail is not good enough. It has to actually be like that statement, but it doesn't need to show all of the information, but it does need to be an official statement. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. We're going to get on to this letter library. I started a letter last night, but I didn't get a chance to finish it. So when you are creating a new letter, what I have found is the easiest way to go about it is to find a letter that you've recently done. Like, for example, I'm going to take this dispute 2025, right? And I'm just going to copy it. Oops, Z, what did I do? Okay, I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to select all, which is going to be like Command A, where you select all of the data. And then I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to exit out of here, and I'm going to create a brand new letter. And I'm going to paste the format inside of my new letter because it already has all of the brackets. So everything is already laid out. And if I wanted to change some things, it would make it a lot easier, because with Credit Repair Cloud, they have what's called placeholders, right? And these placeholders, that's how all of your data gets populated based on who you're working on. And I'll kind of show you in a minute, once we create this letter, we'll actually go through a client's profile, and I'll show you how it populates so easily. So no matter who you're working on or what the case is, it'll populate all of that client's information. And I don't ever make the top of my letter super formal or anything. I make it really different because I don't want it to look like a standard credit repair business letter. In fact, I want it to look like it's from a consumer, right? That's my whole goal, is I want to make everything look like it's from a consumer. And a consumer is not going to, have Credit Repair Cloud for the most part. Okay. So at the very top, I'll just put in the bureau address, because right here, if you see this bureau address, it is going to populate the credit bureau name and address automatically. So whether it's going to Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion, it'll populate that data automatically. And then I've got my brief, header in here. Before I do this, I'm actually going to select the category. I have my new custom letters. If you wanted to add a new folder in, you can just click on Manage Template Category, and you can add a new category in here. So if I wanted to add like 2026 letters, I could totally do that. So 2026, or I'll put in new 2026 letters. Okay. And I can save that category, and I can save it under that particular folder. Status is active. And then I always like to put A1 in front of my letters because they'll populate at the very top. And I'll just put in like new 2026 dispute. Okay, this is just going to be a basic dispute. And it looks like it took my letter out, so I'm just going to paste it back in. And before you get, too far with things, you want to just click on add letter, because I've done so many times where I've worked on a letter and then I'll accidentally do a back click or something, and the whole letter will just disappear. And it's like, oh my God, I just spent all of that time doing this letter and it just disappeared on me. So now you can search for that letter and you can edit template. And now we can just go in there and kind of make some changes because it's already saved. And once we're done kind of, reformatting it and all that good stuff, then we can save it again. So last night we were actually talking about the FCRA law 1681I, which is the procedure in case of disputed accuracy. And this is a great part of the law that basically says, hey, the credit bureaus are required to report accurate information on your credit report. And if you go through this law and actually read it, you can see that there's actually a lot of gray area in here, right? Talks about the reinvestigation process, reinvestigations of disputed items. You've got the prompt notice of dispute to furnisher of information. And if you keep on going down, it really kind of, goes into a lot of detail of what people are dealing with the credit bureaus not investigating. They're calling their disputes frivolous, or they're calling their disputes irrelevant. They're not processing their claims, the notices that actually should be, sent out to consumers that are rarely done, right? It talks about a lot of information in here. And you'll notice if you read through it, you're like, well, there's a lot of room for error inside of that. It talks about the automated reinvestigation system. So there's a lot of good violations that they can make inside of this law here. Okay. So what we're going to do, instead of just, using all of these different, sections of this particular law, we're just going to use 15 U.S. Code 1681I, pop it into ChatGPT and say, write me a paragraph to the credit bureaus, right? Use the FCRA law to create a formal dispute to correct errors on credit report from an angry consumer. Oops, I could spell. Because again, I want this to seem like it's coming from the consumer, not a credit repair agency, right? And a lot of consumers might not even know the law, but just to kind of keep it simple for the credit bureaus. So this is pretty decent. Let me go ahead and copy this. I'm going to take some of this out because a lot of this stuff I don't really need. All right, so I'm just going to copy a portion of it because I like to, again, be very different with my letters. I have letters that nobody else has because I cut and piece them together and I kind of make them my own, okay? So instead of using this other collections verbiage that I have in here, I'm going to take that out. I'm going to pop in what I just got from chat, and I'm going to put this letter serves as an official notice of dispute under my rights provided. Does someone have a question? Okay. Now, this is where you're going to put all of the account information right here, right? But we don't have to do that because what we're going to do is just use one of the placeholders inside of Credit Repair Cloud. This is the placeholder for all of your disputed items and the explanation, okay? We're going to pop that right there, and it'll then list out all of the different items that you're disputing on your credit report. And then it says, I'm demanding a reasonable investigation. No, we're not going to say that. We're going to say, I am demanding you remove these errors as required by the federal law under, and I'm not going to put that. I'm going to just put the basic law. Sometimes chat will add extra stuff in there that I don't want. And you are required to conduct, I don't even want to talk about that. I'm going to take that out. Okay. Simply verifying the account with the furnisher without reviewing actual documentation is not lawful or reasonable investigation. All right. Perfect. Furthermore, okay, I'm going to take out that extra stuff because, again, not necessary. I'm going to take out if you cannot. And I'll give you guys this letter as well so you can pop it into your Credit Repair Cloud because it'll already be formatted. And then I use another app called Grammarly, and I'm a huge fan of it because Credit Repair Cloud doesn't have spell check, which, is a tool that I use a lot. So Grammarly is a plugin that you can use on your computer. And I want to say it's like $20 a month. It's not too bad, but it helps write things, reword things. So it's just another AI tool that I find super helpful. So now we're going to kind of format this. Please provide. So first letter can just be simple dispute letter, right? Second letter should be something like this where it's like, how did you verify this? How did you get this information? Kind of pressing them on how they were able to verify this accuracy of the accuracy of this information. Because at the end of the day, they don't make outbound phone calls. The credit bureaus don't, right? So they are not calling the bank to verify information. They are simply using an eOscar system, a computer system, and they're communicating back and forth with different codes. They're not able to provide additional details through codes and computers. So it's really hard for them to verify different information with simple codes, which is called the Metro 2 language. Right? So that leaves a lot of room for error. That leaves a lot of room for us to say, no, you did not properly verify or validate this information, and I demand that you remove it from my credit report. Because a lot of us have probably experienced where we've disputed something and we really just wanted them to change it or update the late payment to paid as agreed. And then the dang credit bureau will take off that whole account off of our credit report. That's more common than them actually updating it, to be honest with you. So you can ask them for the way that they provided it because it is part of the law. So you can say, please provide me with the method of verification used in your investigation, the name, address, and phone number of the party who verified the information, copies of any documents used to verify that, because that actually is a part of the law. If you scroll down here, let me see, which section is that? There's so much in this particular law that it's crazy. It took me a while to really study this stuff. And it's not like this stuff is super fun to study. So, at the end of the day, we also have to tell our clients, look, we're not lawyers. We're not giving you legal advice, but this is for information and educational purposes only. I think I already passed it. Was it B3? I think it is. I don't know. For some reason, I'm not finding it, but I know it's in here because we just reviewed it last night. But it talks about, how they verified the information, what phone number they called, what the name was of the person that they talked to. And we know that they're not going to get any of that, So, and then also they have to provide us no later than 5 business days after the completion of the reinvestigation by mail or authorized by the consumer for that purpose. So once they've investigated, they got to tell you all that good stuff. And right here, it talks about the automated reinvestigation system, because a lot of times they're not reinvestigating it at all. They're not doing anything different than what they have already done. And at the end of the day, they do very, very little, right? So you really have to just continue to press them and continue to really say, look, no, this is not accurate. And you might say, well, I already did that. It might seem redundant to a lot of people, but that's how credit repair is, because you're getting these automated notices from a computer system. And it's really hard to get through to an actual person. So a lot of times, you want to submit your letters, and then you also want to follow up with a phone call to the credit bureaus and try to actually get someone from the US that knows what they're doing and understands the law and is a manager of some sort, because that way, you can let them know, look, what more do you want from me, right? I've sent in everything that you guys have asked me for, and you are refusing to process my request. And at this point, the next step is going to be litigation if we cannot get this matter resolved. Sometimes you have to take that route. You have to go through litigation, whether that be arbitration through one of those third parties like the AAA, or, you take them to either state court or federal court. But state and federal's filing are going to be a lot more than arbitration. I believe arbitration's like 200-ish or so dollars, which, you'll have to pay initially, but you can ask for reimbursement from the credit bureau from that cost that you had to acquire from their inaccuracies and all that good stuff. But there's tons of other laws inside of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is the Chapter 41, Subchapter 3, Credit Reporting Agencies. These are all of the laws that the credit reporting agencies actually have to follow. So you can see here, there's also, civil liability for willful noncompliance, civil liability for neglect of noncompliance. Those are some good areas that you can find different violations. We've got the compliance procedures. There's a lot of different violations that the credit bureaus are making on a daily basis just because of the fact that their computer systems aren't as smart as a human, and it leaves a lot of room for errors. Okay, if you have been a victim of identity theft, or data breach or something that caused inaccurate or just identity theft stuff to pop up on your credit report, this is a law that you would use in regards to that. And by law, they are required to remove such fraud from your credit report within 4 business days. Oh, I'm sorry, no later than 3 business days. So technically, that's the law, right? And that's how a lot of people might advertise online to give people oh, we can get your credit cleaned in 2 weeks. They're just using this, which, I don't know, it may or may not be the case for some people. And I don't recommend doing this, for if you're not a victim of identity theft. There are so many other ways that you can go around something before you have to do this, because if you start doing fraud on stuff, you're going to get all these fraud alerts, and it's just going to make it really hard for you in the future. So, that's what a lot of people in this industry will do, is they will just do false identity theft claims for people. And that stuff just doesn't work anymore. Back in the day, it was super easy to do. Everyone was cleaning credit like that. And, over the last 5 years, it's really changed. So unfortunately, those bad apples just made it harder for everybody else that's trying to do the right thing. So that's why I always tell people, sometimes you have to pay things, but we can still dispute the account on your reports. And, you have to be careful, because just because it's not on your credit report doesn't mean that you don't owe the debt. I was speaking with someone this week, and they had sent me a court document and said, well, this account isn't on his credit report. And I said, right, they got a default judgment for that account, so you have to pay it now. Because if you don't pay a default judgment, they can potentially, start garnishing your wages. They can take your tax returns. They're going to get their money one way or another. So that's what we don't want to happen. We don't want them to take us to court. If they do, you got to show up. You got to tell your clients to show up, because if you don't show up, they're going to win by default because you didn't show up, and then you're going to get that default judgment. So you have to be careful, and that's why it's a good idea for people to take care of things the right way. And, if they are getting sued, you might just have to settle with them at that point, because if it's theirs, it is what it is. They're going to have to learn, you have to take care of your stuff. Not everything just goes away, especially in this day and age. If it's for a low amount of money, chances are they're probably not going to waste their time taking you to court. But if it's, $5,000 or more, then, they might. You just never know. Okay, so back to our letter here. We've got the method of verification in your letter. We've got if you fail to conduct that. I like to kind of say that's okay for now. I've already put the dispute items earlier up, so I'm going to actually just add this little block right there. And I already have these laws in from my past letter, which actually is kind of redundant, to be honest with you. So I might just take those out. I'm going to leave this one in and take the rest out. Okay. I think I'm just going to put this up here, and then I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Again, I like to make my letters very different. You can format them pretty cool now in Credit Repair Cloud, because before it was like very basic, but now you can kind of change the font. So this is bigger, bold. You can make it a different font. I'm actually going to make all of this the Times New Roman, because that's not usually a font that Credit Repair Cloud uses, so it won't look like it's coming from there. I don't know. Sometimes I change things all the time. I'm like, nope, I don't like it. Okay, I think that's good. I like to put a big kind of like heading there, so it's kind of like a cover letter. I think everything else is good. You don't need to have a bunch of paragraphs either, because it just creates more pages that are going to have to print. I think that is pretty good. I think I'm going to put this into ChatGPT and just make it shorter. And ChatGPT is one of the things that really helps me a tremendous amount, because before I used to do all this by hand. And then there was an app called WordSpin on Google, and I would put stuff in there to, respin it. But that is all been cleared up with ChatGPT. So, yep, let's make it more aggressive. Okay. Copy that. Put in here, I'm going to be seeking $1,000, $1,000 per violation, plus damages for the following: defamation, neglect. Let's put in here some of these violations as well. And sometimes it takes a minute to get your letters right. And you're like, oh my God, this takes forever. Well, it's going to save you a lot more time in the long run, because you're going to be able to use this letter for so many different people. Take that one out. Conditions. Okay, nope, I don't need that. Disclosures, compliance procedures, we can leave that in. We don't need trafficking or block. It used to take me way longer to get these letters done without ChatGPT. So I'm like, I am so thankful for Chat. And, don't have it create your whole letter, but you can just kind of pick and choose and then, see kind of what works best, because you don't want a whole letter like that just sounds like it's from AI and, they're not going to take you serious. So that's why I kind of piece them together, change the font on it, change the size. Let's change this to 18. Actually, that's too big. I don't want too many pages printing. 14 is fine. And then I'm going to just put all these extra paragraphs together because I want my letter as short as possible because I don't want to have to spend more money on postage. I just give it one last review. Sometimes the fonts don't populate over, so I'm going to have to select all this stuff again and select the font, because you can see before a lot of this stuff, I don't know, was not working. Let me see here. So you can actually clear all the formatting. Like if you copy and paste from the Cornell Law, you can clear all the formatting by clicking this little button right here. So it just cleared all the formatting for me. So I will have it all back to like template. Now I can change it and change the font, and it should all be the same now, which looks like it is. Okay, so that's good. And even still, this is not. So let me see if I can clear the formatting. Okay, it's cleared. And then select Times New Roman. It just will not do that. Credit Repair Cloud's kind of funky like that. Sometimes, this software won't always do what you want it to do. So you just have to kind of do what it will allow you to do. And sometimes that's good enough. Okay, let's make sure that looks good. And I'm going to save room here and kind of put that all into one paragraph and try again to format it. And if it doesn't format, sometimes I just think it just won't. Okay, it did. All right. I think I'm going to take that out here and just put this notice is sent to correct your records, because I've got all the other laws up there and I don't want to confuse them. And I've got 1681I in there. Okay, that's good. Now, mind you, these laws are directly for the credit reporting agencies, okay? So this is a letter that we would just use towards the credit reporting bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, LexisNexis, any consumer reporting agency that reports consumer data like check systems, early warning, they all have to follow this law, the 15 U.S. Code 41 subchapter 3 for credit reporting agencies. Okay. Now, if you are wanting to write a same type of dispute for like a collections company, then you're going to want to go to the debt collection practices law section, because this part of the law applies directly to third-party debt collection practices. Okay. And these are all the different violations that they could potentially, violate. And this is very, very different. But, this law does not apply to original creditors. All right. Now, I still have put stuff from the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act inside of my letters to the credit bureau, and I've gotten deletions from there. Like, for example, validation of debt, 1692G. That's a very popular one. Civil liability, harassment or abuse, false or misleading representations. Those are very popular sections of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that you could, pop that into ChatGPT and have it, retwist a letter for you that will go directly to the collections agency. Or you can even use some of these laws regarding a collections agencies to the credit bureaus. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, but this letter looks good. I'm going to hit save before I mess up anything further. Okay, it's updated. I always click back in there and make sure that it all saved. Everything looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my new letter, and I've got all the client's information here. One thing that I think I'm going to do actually in this letter too is personal information. So I'm just going to take the brackets from below, and up here I'm going to put my only name is this, first name, last name. My only address of 2+ years is, and then that will populate the client's address. And then what I'm going to say here is, please remove any, oh look, that was not supposed to be up there. See, I always catch stuff. Please remove any other errors reported on my personal information. So, oh my gosh. See, it keeps on doing that. See, the software is weird sometimes. Sometimes it'll change things, but you just got to kind of go slow. Please remove any other errors reported on my personal information section on my, let's see. Please remove any other errors reported on my consumer, see, did it again. Consumer report. Okay, so now I think we're good to go here. I'm going to make this bold and make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so this looks good, and then I'm going to bold this and make this bigger so that way those things kind of stand out. This looks good, and I'm going to save it. Okay, update letter. So now let's go ahead and give it a test drive. I'm going to go over to one of my clients, and you can just search up their name. And looks like we just updated his report. So you can see, like back in July, he was down in the 600s. And now come January, he's all over 700s now. So that's a nice update. So normally, if you were coming in to update a report, you're just going to click on Import Audit, and that's going to take you directly to tab 1. And you can re-import their credit report. I'm not going to do that because we just re-imported it, and the data is already in there. So all that I would have to do here is go over to generate letters. Now, if you had a pending report in here, you could potentially tag it if you needed to. It would be right in here. But if you already have the data and you're like, well, I'm just going to generate another round of letters, you just head on over to tab 3 to generate your letters for your client. I always select round 2 or higher because this will allow you to select from your custom letters in your letter library that you just added. Who it's going to? It's generally going to be the credit bureaus, right? Because if you're going to send to a creditor or collection agency, that's fine. You could totally do that, but that's not the letter that we just created. Click on Save Dispute Items. So this little green button here. If you click on New Dispute Item, that is basically going to prompt you to add something new that may have just been added. So sometimes people reach out and they say, oh, I just saw a new collection pop up on my credit report. Well, since we just pulled this person's credit and it wasn't there then, we would have to manually add it in if we wanted to get, it in there right away. So we would just select what credit bureaus it's reporting to and fill out the basic information, the reason why you're disputing it, the instruction, and you can add those custom reasons in there as well. And then you're going to select the creditor. And if it's not in there, if the collection agency is not in there, just hit Add Creditor and hit Add to Dispute. That's for new items. But generally, you have all of your items in there from the recent credit report. So you're just going to click on Saved Dispute Items. And since we just did his file, a lot of things are going to be already in dispute. So one thing that you could do is select all of these items to dispute everything, but what that's going to do is it's going to select all the personal information for you guys. So it seems like personal information piles up in Credit Repair Cloud. So I don't want to add all that personal information because with his profile, he's almost done. He only has a very few items left. And honestly, most of this is like personal information. You can tell because it doesn't have any creditor data and there's no account numbers, and you can see the following personal. So it's going to say personal information. So that's all addresses. We don't need to add any of that. We're focused on the actual account. So we're going to select Barclays, Lending Point, U.S. Department of Education, and then if they have any other accounts or inquiries, we can actually, this Chase one is valid, so I'm not going to dispute that one. Citizens, this is a duplicate Chase. Grab those inquiries that are left. And it's weird too because like on this client's profile, he has two credit monitorings. He has MyFICO and then he has Identity IQ. Now he had Identity IQ well before he met me, so he just kept it because even though Identity IQ is a Vantage 3.0 system, it is compatible with Credit Repair Cloud. So I just used it since he already has it. But he also pays for MyFICO. So when I log into MyFICO, he only has one inquiry on his MyFICO reports. But for some odd reason, when we look at his Identity IQ, he has multiple inquiries listed. So it's very odd. And that's kind of another good thing that you can do is just verify like between different credit monitoring accounts to make sure that the data is consistent across the board. Because I don't know why it is reporting like that, but it definitely shouldn't be. And then I don't think these Navients are even on his credit report anymore. It's just the one Department of Education because those are both deleted, but I manually added those in, so they're still going to, show. And this Navient's old, so I'm not going to add that in. So that's it for him. Let's hit Add to Dispute. So that'll add all of the items that we put in there. And it's weird because it says this was, so this was deleted from Equifax, but it's still on Experian. So Credit Repair Cloud has kind of added some new features, so you can see that they put little notes down here about everything, which is kind of nice. All right, so now you see all the items that you've selected that you're going to add to your dispute letter, right? And you've got accounts, you've got inquiries, because this letter is kind of a universal letter, so we can add a little bit of everything to it. You're going to hit save and continue. I'm going to go find my new letter library category, and then I'm going to select that letter that we just created, and I'm going to hit generate letter. And you could see I'm on Equifax. It generated Equifax's information. Attention Equifax. It generated all my clients' information here. And the only thing that I don't like is it generates the address on 2 lines. So I like to kind of bring that up so it doesn't take up more space. And then for all of the stuff that it populates, I bring the dates up so it doesn't take up so much space. Okay. That looks good. And then I'm going to go over to Experian. I think at the bottom that looks good too. I'll head over to the Experian tab and do the same thing. Just make sure that I bring up this address. And, all these lines, they're just not needed, and it makes for more printing. So I try to condense everything as much as possible. And it also changed the format because I don't want my letters to look like they're from Credit Repair Cloud, So sometimes I'll even bring them up to like 1 line like this. Let's see. And to be honest, it's probably best practice just to have their credit reports open side by side so you can take a peek at them and then come look at what they have going on, because like right now, I'm not sure if that inquiry is still even on his report. So let's do that in just a second. So I've got all of the letters, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. I'm going to hit save for later. You can change the different round numbers. So go like that and just put, you can name it whatever you want to. I'm just going to use something generic for like dispute. It'll give you a task to follow up in about 30 days. And then once I hit save letters, it's going to send the client a notification saying, hey, you have some letters that have been generated for you. And that'll let them know that we're working on their file. Now, if I wanted to go back, you'll notice here, it's going to ask me again, do you want to leave without saving the letters? Well, I just saved them. And this is kind of like the tricky thing about Credit Repair Cloud. If you save it again, it's going to keep on saving a duplicate copy. So you're going to have all these different copies of that same letter in your printing queue. So no, you do not want to save it. You want to go ahead and just click leave the page. And the quickest way that you can just clear that is just to go to a different tab and then go back, and it will clear it up for you. Now, what I like to do is go over to tab 1 and then scroll down all the way to the very bottom to where you can get the client's login for their credit reports. In this case, like I said, it's Identity IQ. And Identity IQ and MyScore IQ are the same company, except, Identity IQ is a Vantage 3.0 scoring system, and MyScore IQ is a FICO. So that's the only difference. And of course, FICO is what is most important, 6378. Okay, and then once you get into Identity IQ, you're just going to hit View Latest Report. And you can see the report date right here. Looks like there is like a security freeze notice that we're getting with TransUnion, which, before they apply for funding, we need to get that corrected. Credit scores, and then I'm just going to go through the data here. This is, an old authorized user credit card. So whenever you see a bureau code terminated, generally what that means is it was like an old authorized user card that someone just, removed them from. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing, okay? Leave it, because this is a great trade line. He's got a $33,000 credit limit. There's nothing negative about this account. The word terminated just means that he was removed as an authorized user, but he's still inheriting this credit limit and this credit history from 1999 on TransUnion and Experian. And this was actually a trade line that he got from me a while back. So, this is still helping him to this day. It looks like it just fell off of Equifax, but you can see like Equifax has the lowest credit score as well, because that account fell off and it has so much history to it and it has a high limit. So that kind of sucks, but it is what it is. All of his current stuff, he was able to get a lot of credit since we started working together. This is $18,900 credit card. Some limits are higher than others, but that's just the way it goes. Another terminated, so that's another authorized user credit card that's still providing benefit on TransUnion and Experian. His one Barclays that is only on TransUnion and has a late payment, so that's one account. Then we have another Barclays that's only on Equifax with 2 late payments. All the stuff that's in green and there's nothing negative, we don't want to mess with it. This was a Chase trade line that he got from me for $99,000, and this was a great trade line because his utilization was really high. So we added this, and again, this was like last year, but it was a great way for him to piggyback off that. More terminated, that's authorized user, American Express, Chase. These are all fine. If you don't have any negative stuff on them, don't worry about them. Because I've had people where they've gone through credit repair and they told me like everything was taken off of their credit. And we don't want to take the good stuff off. We only want to take the bad stuff off, or stuff that has, late payments to it. Seller finance, that's fine. most of these other accounts are good because we've gotten almost everything off of his report besides just a few accounts that are left. But my biggest thing is seeing what inquiries are left on his credit report, because when I looked at his MyFICO, it was like nothing. But for whatever reason, they have some. And then we have this U.S. Department of Education that's just left on Experian. It doesn't have a balance, but it was still reporting a collection charge-off status. So we're still trying to get that off his credit from 2020, which can be difficult, but you just got to keep on keeping on. Okay, so the inquiries here are very different. We've got 1 on TransUnion, we've got 3 on Equifax, and we've got 2 on Experian. So what I want to do is make sure that these inquiries are, on his credit letters here. The Navy Federal one is valid, so I'm not going to add that. These 3 with Equifax, I can get those off. So I'm just going to copy that, go to my Equifax, or go to generate letters. Again, credit bureau. I will just have to, sometimes I select things just to generate the letter, and then I'll paste in my own stuff because I just want to make sure that it's exactly, I didn't miss anything, So if I do it this way, I still need to generate a letter for Equifax. So I need to find something negative for Equifax, even if it's just something like this, so I can generate a letter for them. Okay, so I've got a letter that's generated for each bureau, and I'm going to hit save and continue. I'm going to go into my old custom letters, and these are just inquiries. So in this case, I'm just going to select an inquiry case or an inquiry letter. And that way I can just paste in those inquiries. So let's see, this is Equifax. So I'm going to paste in what I've got here. Maybe if I paste unformatted, paste and match style. Okay, there we go. So you got to paste and match style for it to paste just normal. And I'm going to put these credit inquiries placed on my credit report are not valid. And then I'm going to put, I demand you remove these immediately. No, actually, I can just put this. I demand you remove. Okay. All right. That's good enough. Now we've got Experian. So I'm going to take a peek at, see, one of these is a duplicate. So I'm just going to select one because for whatever reason, they ran his credit twice that one day, and it should have only been once. Oops. I'm going to right click and put paste and match style so it goes in easy. I'm just going to put remove duplicated data on this date. When you are disputing inquiries, the most important thing is the name, exactly how it's showing on the credit report, and the date. All right, the name and the date. Those are the 2 biggest factors that you have to make sure to include when it goes to inquiries. And it's always best to remove inquiries before the account hits your credit profile. And honestly, you have such a limited amount of time, it's best to, call over the phone because you want to try to get them removed as soon as possible. Now, I don't really have anything for TransUnion because I only have one inquiry for TransUnion, and honestly, that one was a debt consolidation loan, so it's actually very valid. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of leave this as is because these are the other errors from other accounts, but it doesn't hurt. Even though I just did another letter for them, it's not going to hurt to add another one. So I'm going to hit save for later, add, and then just put I and Q stands for inquiry. INQ. Unauthorized. What the heck? All right, let's try it again. Sometimes software can be funky. All right. I don't know why it's doing that. Oh, okay. Because I didn't put that in probably. Still no. That's so weird. Sometimes you'll run into where it's like, I don't know, the software is just being funky. So click out of it, try to click back in it and see if you can save it. I don't know why it's not letting me because I've just saved a letter. 111. Okay. I don't know. That's so weird. Let me hit save and continue to print and see if that'll work. Nope. Oh boy. See, and that's one of the prime examples of like what you may deal with software. It doesn't always want to, work properly for you, but you just have to try to find workarounds and, it may not. This is the first time that's ever done something like that for me. And a lot of times when they are working on their software, it's like on weekends or nights. So of course you might run into, errors, but it doesn't happen a lot, Sometimes their software is slow, but that's, about the worst of it, to be honest with you. Okay, that's really weird. Now, what I could do is I could copy the text and I can put it into Microsoft Word and then I could print it from Microsoft Word. So that's probably what I'm going to have to do, to be honest with you, is just save a copy of that and probably just put it into like my Google Drive and print it from there. Because for whatever reason, it is not wanting to cooperate and save. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in to a Google Drive and then I can print it later. So that way I don't lose any of the work that I did, and that's, kind of a workaround. So that way at least you'll have a copy. I'm going to try one more time to save it, but I don't know. It's being kind of weird. Let's try round 1 and just put round. Yep. Okay. I'm not going to try. It's being weird. All right. So I'm just going to hit back and it's not going to let me save it. So I'm just going to, I tried, but I'm just going to hit leave page. So, you can see how easy it is to generate the letters, right? Because now that I generated that letter, I'll be able to repurpose that letter for multiple clients. And it's kind of like a multi-purpose letter, to be honest with you. And that way you can just build on top of that. And I'll put this letter inside of the community as well, so you guys can use it. I'll put it inside of the dispute letter library and just create like a new page with new letters, and I'll add a couple other ones that I have inside of my community, and I'll just put CRC letter templates. And whether you want to use it verbatim, pop it into ChatGPT, make it smaller, shorter, whatever, you can do that. I always recommend changing up letters, even if you get a letter from somebody else, like you see a template letter online. Always change it up, add your little twist to it, and then, kind of go from there. Does anyone have any questions on Credit Repair Cloud? I know we've probably covered a lot and it can be very confusing when you first start, but I promise it gets better. But if you have any questions, come off mute, ask away. Any questions?
Miss Nicole, I got one.
Yeah.
So just say for instance, for instance, you using smart credit, but you no longer want to use smart credit in Credit Repair Cloud and you want to use something else.
Right.
Just throwing out there. How would you go about doing that?
I love that question. So here is kind of like the pros and cons to that, right?
Okay.
So the only way that you would be able to switch if you started off with like smart credit, the only switch that you could switch to in a person's account would be Credit Hero Score. Okay. They do that on purpose because it's their scoring system. They make money off it, and they can program it to such, right?
Gotcha.
But a lot of people don't use Credit Hero scores. So if I wanted to take, say, my client here and change, I would have to create a whole new account for him, because it's not going to let you change it. So if you go into edit and you try to select a different provider, you're not going to be able to do it. And I've had that happen with a few different people where, for whatever reason, they just could not get into their accounts with either Smart Credit or Identity IQ or one of those, right? So we have to create a whole new account for someone. And you can only use, one email address. So when you're creating the new account, you basically, like, in some cases, you might have to leave it like open because their billing might be set up in it, and then just create like a duplicate account, make notes in there. And eventually, like, on the first account, you're going to have to remove their email address and just put that they don't have an email address. So, like, if I was doing this to this person, I would just go to click view, edit profile, and just click this person does not have an email address. So that way I can save their account without an email.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I wish there was an easier way, but unfortunately, that's the easiest.
No, it's all good. Like I said, I'm trying to work on my own credit, and I'm just still trying to learn how to use Credit Repair Cloud. I haven't upgraded to the $179 program yet until after I can figure out what's going on with the till I figure out what's going on with my credit first.
Right.
And so right now I'm on like the $49 plan. So I just want to use the basic plan for right now, just until I can get comfortable with it. So
for sure. Yeah, I recommend doing that. And then, you can add in your own letters. I'm going to try to add in some of these custom ones that I've put into my Credit Repair Cloud. And then you guys can put your own spin on it. But at least it's, already formatted and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I definitely thank you, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
Does this go into like a recording or like a file where we can go back to? I actually happen to be at work, so I'm kind of in and out.
Yes, absolutely. So the recordings are usually up within like a week or so, but when I have to edit all the personal information, they take a little bit longer, but they will definitely be out and available within the next 2 weeks or so. And what I do is inside the community, the replays updated list right here. These are all the replays. So I just continue to add to these. So you'll just be able to click on the link and it'll take you directly to the classroom that it's a part of. Because usually I try to group the classrooms together. So like this one, since it was about, Credit Repair Cloud training, it'll be under Credit Repair Cloud training.
Gotcha.
In the classroom section.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the more you guys use Credit Repair Cloud, the more you get familiar with it, the more you're like, okay, this, I can process a client's file in, 15 minutes now. So it just gets easier with time. You saw how fast it was for me to process the client that I just did with that template. And, every time I feel like it just gets easier and easier and easier.
So backtracking on what he said, I'm kind of in a similar situation. I'm also on the $49 plan because I'm just getting started. And I just did my first round. Actually, I'm behind on my second round on my own personal stuff. Mm-hmm. Would it be wise to just stay on the Credit Hero thing now or switch out and just...
Yeah. I mean, if you're already using Credit Hero and you've already kind of got it situated, I would just leave it as is because, it works. You're going to get the data. You understand that this is not your true FICO scores.
Yeah.
But,
and maybe just going forward with anybody else or anybody else wanting to, go. Got you. That makes sense.
Yeah. And even if I do recommend someone or use a Vantage scoring system, I always tell them like, hey, we're just going to use this for the data because this is not your true scores. The only places that really use these type of scoring models, like the Vantage scoring models, are like property management companies. If you get approved for like an apartment, that'll probably be the same because it's a cheaper credit scoring system to acquire than a FICO. But as far as like banks and, financial institutions, they are all going to be using a FICO. They'll use their pre-approvals, usually with Advantage, but that's why you go through that pre-approval process. Once you accept the, offer, then that's when they tell you whether or not you're, approved or denied based on your FICO. Any other questions while we're here, guys? Don't be afraid to ask. Come off mute. I'm going to continue to add these in here. Yeah.
Okay, so I was looking at my credit report today, and I noticed I had a repo from I want to say 2022, 21, somewhere up in there. But it showed on my report, like I think Experian and TransUnion got like 29,000, Equifax got like 18,000. But at the bottom, like where it say balance old and all that, like it's zero across all the way across the board. So when I look at the report and I want to try to dispute that, what would be the best way to dispute that, or is that considered as I know it's a disputable process, but what would be the best way?
To be honest with you, what I would do is I would open up your credit reports, take a screenshot of it, and use like the snip tool that I showed you, and highlight, hey, this is an error, this is not correct, and send them a screenshot of what you're talking about and say, please update to be corrected to, whatever that number should be.
Okay. All right.
And that's part of like the factual disputing process is, sending them the proof that they need, because not all the time they're going to understand you and like what you're trying to say to them, because it's just a computer system. And that's why sometimes it is important to follow up with a phone call. Like, hey, I sent in a request to you guys and you didn't update it. It says that you updated it, but there's nothing updated. It's still reporting like the same errors that it was. And you can ask for, a supervisor or a manager or someone from the U.S. Sometimes I have to ask for that. I know it sounds silly, but it's true. And what do you need from me to get this corrected, essentially? Because at the end of the day, sometimes they'll tell you like, hey, this is what we need from you in order to get this corrected. And, usually it's obtainable. Like you can get what you need to get them like what they need, I
got you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions or people going through something with their credit fixing or disputing that they need help with? There's no right or wrong way to do it, guys.
I'm going to ask a question just because nobody's taking advantage of it, but feel free to kick me out or tell me I've
it's all good.
So what is your thought on like debt settlement programs along with this or without this or what? Because this is my situation. I unfortunately have had credit most of my life. I'm now going to turn 50. And just recently I kind of fell into a situation where I kind of fell into the trick, like, oh, well, you get into a debt settlement thing, you can get out 2, 3, 4 years, 4 years, you're done. And I fell into it because of so many people that were like pushing it and saying like, yes, it works. Then I've spoken to some other people that are in the credit repair industry. They're like, no, there's no way, there's no reason to do that. And if you do it, there's other ways to go about it, even within like their program. Like we work on doing this as well. What are your thoughts on debt settlement and whether that's an option that some people should really consider or not do it all?
To be honest with you, if someone is going to go through debt settlement, I would recommend Green Pathway Financial because they are a nonprofit debt counseling company that really does have the best interest, because a lot of those debt consolidation places are like a ripoff. Like you could do that yourself if you really wanted to, because the way I look at it is, settle with whoever's pressing you the most, right? And try to get a payment plan with them, because at this point it's already charged off. I don't see the debt settlement people getting much more of a deal than you could with them,
Yeah.
but just negotiating directly with them, like, hey, I want to make right with you, but this is all I have,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
kind of just going that route and paying it little by little, obviously whatever is a priority, so that way you can get as many accounts to a zero balance. Because when you pay a debt consolidation company, you're paying them like monthly, but it's like, where are those funds going? It takes so long to start seeing them like make payments towards your debt. It's almost like not worth it, because you can be taking that money and paying it directly to the creditor for a payment plan that you've made with them.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm realizing now, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm too far in to try to correct it, on my own, or maybe even trying that. I guess I would probably try Green Path to see what they suggest. But yeah,
Yeah.
I actually and I fell into it so hard that I kind of defaulted on a bank that I've had a long history with, and I'm like, I
Hmm.
feel so bad about it, and it
Right.
bothers me that, and I actually just received a letter from them saying, like, what, they're giving me an actual offer, like a final offer, like almost like 40-60% off, but like if you make these payments, we'll forget the rest and no more finance,
Right.
stuff like that. So I was just thinking about that. I'm like, what, I think I'm, like I said, I'm at this point now, I'm like at like $500 a month or something, and I'm like, if I took two of those payments, I could probably pay off one of those credit cards
Yep.
completely. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, I totally agree with you. So that's why I'm not a fan of paying these debt places, because you could be paying that directly to the bank. And, a lot of times they will settle with you for, 30 to 50% of the debt. And if they're already saying, hey, look, we'll settle for 40 to 60, like, hey, let's press them a little bit with negotiations and
Sure.
see if
Yeah.
we can
Well,
get that to 30 or 20.
right. Yeah. That was exactly what I was thinking. I think I have to like the end of mid month or mid next month. So I was like, I do have
Yeah.
a little bit of time to figure something out. But
Yeah.
yeah, and like you said, even then, I think obviously if they're paying off, now I'm realizing they're not even paying the original creditor. They're paying the third party, and obviously, who knows? Realistically, I mean, that stuff's not coming off anyways, unless you try to fight it, obviously. So it's not like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, got you, thank you.
And the more that you can get to a zero, so they're no longer actively reporting as derogatory, that's going to be best. And I always tell everyone, settling debt is not a bad thing, because you know that you've done the right thing. It's not going to come back and bite you in the butt later. You're not going to get any surprise lawsuits, or surprise, garnishments on your paycheck or bank account or anything like that. So it is necessary, but you can still dispute the account data after the fact. And a lot of times, like we've probably experienced in other cases, they just take the entire account off your credit report because they don't know how to correct like one little thing on there. So they'll just take the whole thing off, which ultimately that's what we want in these type of cases, right?
Right.
I try to salvage some trade lines, especially like when it comes to like ones that have late payments. Like I had a client, he, had a late on a mortgage. They deleted the entire mortgage account from one credit bureau. So he doesn't have that on there. So it's one of those things that, could still happen. You can still dispute it after the fact. So work on getting that off your credit report. And, eventually that data, if for some reason you can't get it off, or you're just like, hey, I'm like done trying to fight this whole thing, like it's going to fall off in the next 12 months anyway, so I could care less, It's like, okay, cool. We'll just wait for that to fall off organically.
Would you suggest that I maybe really focus on the bigger accounts? Really, I mean, since I've already kind of like, I'm not saying that I shouldn't obviously pay off the other ones, but
Yeah.
focus on the big ones that might have the worst consequences if they do.
Yeah.
Right? Is that what I'm kind of?
Yeah, that's what I would do if I were you, because the ones that have the bigger balances, they're more likely to pursue legal action against you, especially if they're already saying like, hey, if we don't settle this whole thing up, like we'll see you in court. They're not just saying that to scare you. They're telling you that because that's their plans.
Yeah.
And they're giving you an opportunity to settle it before you acquire more debt with them, because they are going to add more debt to what you owe based on the fees, and the money that they have to spend to take you to court. The filing fees are usually several $100s. Legal fees, they can add all that stuff on as an expense or collection to you. So it's going to be a lot cheaper for someone to settle before they go to court, before they file, versus after the fact, because they're going to add all those additional charges to you.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't overextend yourself. I always tell someone, if you can somehow creatively make a one-time payment to them, you're going to get a better deal, right? If you do a payment plan with them, you can usually expect them to settle somewhere around 50 cents on the dollar. And, once that agreed payment plan is completed, you will owe them $0 and they will update your balance to $0. The only banks that I don't recommend doing this with is Navy Federal, because if you make a settlement with them, you can never go back to them in the future for funding. So other banks is usually not the same thing. Like Chase, for example, I had some bad blood with them. And I ended up settling with them. And I think I made like 6 payments over like a 6-month period. And I, did it, paid them on time and all that good stuff. And then I was able to go back to Chase about 4 years later. I didn't really try until about 4 years later, but I did get a personal card and a business card with Chase because, I cleared up my bad blood with them.
Yeah, that's actually who it's with. It's Chase, but yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, okay. And Green Path, they work with Chase heavily as well. So, it's not going to cost you anything to reach out to them and see what they can do to try to negotiate terms with Chase. But, see what they say. See if they can get you some sort of better settlement. I don't know if they would be able to or not, because a lot of times, Chase is at this point mailing you offers. And that's kind of what made me settle with them, because they're like, they'll take like 40% and I could do a payment plan. I was like, oh yeah, done.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I still need to find out if at this point, because it's so late, I think before like charge off, or they want to do a payment plan. It sounded almost, and obviously it's because obviously they want to negotiate for whatever they can get, obviously secured.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like they want something by a certain date, but I'm thinking you might be right. If I'm willing to play, they probably are as well. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah, for sure.
Especially if I initiate with like you said, a good initial payment, and then that just, at least I would imagine, shows them good faith that I'm probably not going to drop off from, any possible payment plans that we might agree on.
Yep. And, they'll tell you straight up, like, look, we'll do a payment plan with you, but the first time that you are late, it is over and the deal is off the table. So they make it very clear to you that if you don't, follow through with this, it's over.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to, assess it, make sure that you're going to be able to keep up with it, because you don't want to agree to something that you're not going to be able to keep up, because it's just a waste of money.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it is a good thing to, do a payment plan with them. Usually they're pretty good about doing payment plans. They generally don't like to do more than like 12 months, just make sure that number is going to be something comfortable for you every month, and try to just knock off one account at a time. That way you're not taking on too much. And if, you have to take on some more, you can, but you can kind of just focus on one at a time. Because you also have to consider there is the statute of limitations for debt as well, right? So if it has been more than, you're in California, statute of limitations for the amount of time that one can sue you over debt is 4 years. So 4 years from the date that account first became delinquent. All right. If it's been more than 4 years since you first became delinquent, they can no longer sue you for that debt. Okay. If it's under 4 years, then yes, you're still in that time frame. So obviously that might be a little bit more pressing for you. But, the nice thing is you don't have to worry about anyone coming to sue you after that 4-year period.
Yeah. Copy. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions before we wrap it up for this evening?
I had a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my question is geared more towards post-credit repair efforts. So just curious if you have any guidance on strategy or maybe sequence of how best to approach business funding, particularly like if one credit bureau has removed virtually like all the negative items and your score looks amazing. And I'd be interested in hearing some credit options. What is if I was interested in developing a Chase Bank business relationship, like from scratch, don't have an account at all, what would be the best approach to kind of begin on the right foot to have the best outcome?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with Chase, they are approving business credit cards off of two primary things: personal credit, or the personal guarantor's credit report, and the business revenue that is stated on the application. They, to my knowledge, as of now, do not look at your business reports. It's primarily just the personal credit reports. So, well, actually, let me take that back. I do believe that they look at SBFE. Some people's SBFE is not built out tremendous. They're just looking for, red flags, like negative behavior, essentially. So as long as you have that cleared, the revenue looks good on the application, you can get a decent amount from them credit card wise with no documents. And, even though you've stated revenue on your application, maybe your revenue isn't that high, obviously they're not going to ask for proof. No bank right now is asking for proof when it comes to credit cards. Now, with lines of credit, loans, yes, be prepared to get asked for proof in some cases. But with just credit cards, you don't necessarily have to have a business bank account with them either. And sometimes I almost tell people it might be better that you don't if you're not making the revenue that you've stated on the application. Because if you're telling them on a credit application that your revenue is $800,000 a year, but you have a business bank account with them that only has a few $100s in it, that's not going to work, So it's almost best that you just don't have a business bank account with them, because it's not a requirement with Chase. Chase is a big credit card company, so you could still go to Chase and get business credit cards as long as you have a developed personal credit report. They want to see that you have comparable credit on your personal credit report, that you've been able to manage, your credit cards. I've had people that, had a few $20,000 credit cards on their personal credit report and didn't really have anything on the business side. And they kind of mirrored the personal credit. So they gave them, around 20, 30,000 for their limit on the business credit card. That was online though. So a lot of times if people are looking for higher limits, it's best to go in person to a branch and work with your local business relationship manager at your local Chase branch. So that way they can kind of, they're all using the same system now, but they can kind of walk you more or less through it, because you can tell them look, I have a lot of expenses in my business. I spend a lot, and, I'm looking for a credit card that can keep up with all of those expenses, because maybe your expenses every month are $50,000, right? Well, we all know, Chase is notorious for giving $50,000, $70,000 credit cards to business owners. So that's one thing that they're pretty good about. You're probably not going to get more than 100, maybe 120 with Chase these days, but I would say that's still a pretty good start with them, because you can get two business credit cards that equal, 100, 120,000. But
That's
in the
awesome. Thank
short,
you.
yeah, you're going to need that personal credit, whether it's you or somebody else, And I've had clients that have gotten creative because their personal credit wasn't exactly where they needed it to be, but they used a spouse or a mother or, a family member to personally guarantee the business credit card on behalf of the business.
Would Tradelines be a nice strategy to help? Say if again, Experian is completely cleaned off. credit score looks great, but now you don't have the type of history that you
Yeah.
probably would need. So would a trade line help in that situation?
Trade lines do help, but Chase especially is looking for, primary accounts that are in your name that you've managed. So in that particular case, you would add trade lines, but then, piggyback off those trade lines for your personal credit first, and probably try to go with like some credit unions that we know are going to give high limits. Navy Federal, Apple Federal, Christian Community, DCU's pretty decent. Now still there's, so many other ones depending on what state. What state are you in?
I'm in New York.
New York. Okay, gotcha. I'm not sure what credit unions are in New York, but Christian Community, I think anyone can join. Navy Federal.
Navy Federal is in New
Yeah.
York. Yeah.
Okay, so Navy Federal, they're good for, those $25,000 credit limit approvals. And that's essentially what you want to kind of do. And that's a strategy that I do with a lot of people, is because, if you build up your relationship with Navy Federal, for 3 months, do a pledge loan or so to build up some credit with them, and, show them that you can basically, pay on time. And the higher amount that you can do for the pledge loan, the better. Because I tell everyone, like, you want to set those standards so that way when their system goes to approve you for that credit card, it's like kind of the same standards as that pledge loan. So I've had a lot of people that were blessed enough to be able to do a $15,000, $20,000 pledge loan, pay that down 90% within like the first couple months, then add a couple high limit trade lines, then apply for the credit card or go through, the pre-approval process for the credit card, either like in your app or on a computer. And a lot of them have gotten $20,000, $25,000 credit cards like off the bat. And then you just wait 3 months, apply for another credit card, and I would probably just keep those two that are like higher limits and just keep on requesting credit limit increases like every 3 to 6 months until you eventually max out at 80,000 across the two cards. Because the banks are going to follow suit. Now when you go to Chase, they see those two credit cards for high amount, they're going to piggyback off of that. And that's exactly what another one of my clients did last year. Was she got the high limit because she didn't even have, like, I think her highest credit card limit was like less than $2,000. It wasn't a lot at all. And as a restaurant owner, she was having a really hard time with everything, being able to buy supplies and stuff. So that was the strategy we used, build up the relationship with Navy, did the $20,000 pledge loan, paid it off 90% within the first 2 months, let another month roll by. We added 2 high limit credit trade lines, $25K and better. Then went after the Navy Federal Green Cash Rewards card. Once she got that and it reported, a couple months later, she went to Chase and she got a $30,000 business credit card with them, which was nice because like that's what she wanted. And she actually got 2 credit cards with Chase, one on the personal side and one on the business side. She was a little disappointed because the personal credit card was only $18,000, but Chase was actually telling her they were surprised that they approved her for that much. And I told her, I said, that's still a good amount for Chase, because as you would have went there with a bare credit profile, not even having a trade line for 2,000, they would have gave you 2,000, but you progressed up and then they kind of met a little bit in the middle. So she got 18,000 on the personal side, but that's still a pretty good start,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And the 30,000 on the business side was even better. So, that's enough to be able to order the supplies and things that she needs on a monthly basis. So, it's all about progression and just kind of having that plan together, but it certainly starts with your personal credit and, building up that so where you have high limit comparable credit that they can use to kind of, use as their approval to piggyback off of.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's a combination, personal trade lines that belong to you and, authorized users, but you still need those accounts that are in your name as well.
Yeah. So I saw what you did after the 2 months, 90% paid down the pledge loan, then you added the trade lines,
Mm-hmm.
and once those had, then you went for the Navy Fed green.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And I have a guide inside of Canva for you guys. I'm sure that I put it in here somewhere, but I'll kind of show it to you because it goes over a lot of, the processes when it comes to Navy Federal, because they're a really big relationship type of bank. And whenever you're dealing with relationship type banks, you really want to make sure that, you do everything in your power to build up that relationship with them in a positive way. I don't know why I cannot see this. There we go. Drag to move. All right, let me see if it'll move. I've got this little icon that's right in my way. Okay, let me try a different browser. But, building up to where you have 5 or more banking products with Navy Federal and, checking account, savings account, overdraft protection, you kind of checked off all of those boxes where you're really focused on building up a really good internal scoring system with them. That's really where you can get approved for good things with Navy Federal, because they base a lot of their approval off of internal data, the internal scoring system that they have. Also having a small direct deposit set up, making sure that you have all those boxes checked. This is the Navy Federal guide. I'll put it in the credit community a little bit later. But you can see here I've got some highlighted. These are my cards that I actually got approved for like many, many years ago. I got the $25,000 cash rewards card and then $20,000 flagship card. These were just a few months apart from each other. And then, more results that I've helped people get. And it's really based on the pledge loans. This was my client that did what we just talked about. We did the pledge loan for $20,000. Then we did the trade lines, all $25K and above. And this was her $20,000 card that she got approved for.
Nice.
And, these are like all approvals that people just were amazed about, because they're like, oh my God, this is the highest credit limit that I've gotten, in my life. So you just got to make sure that you know how to leverage it and you take care of it.
Dad, I have one more question. I don't want to hog, but so I have 2 checking accounts with Navy Federal. One is the everyday checking and one is the easy checking. I know there's like a flagship checking. I have one I don't know how it happened, but my account went negative on the everyday checking. Should I get rid of that account? I mean, should I get rid of it so it's not counted against me? Is that what the steps I need to go to?
Well, you've already been dinged for it, right? But how you kind of retrieve yourself for that is to make sure that you've set up overdraft protection. Have you done that yet?
No.
Yes, make sure that you've set up overdraft protection. They call it their OOPS plan. And what that does is in the event that, something like that were to occur, it's going to pull the money out of your savings account so you don't get an overdraft ding. And then, of course, they don't charge you for that overdraft either. But just make sure that you've got a little bit of cushion in your savings account, and then set it up to where, hey, if I'm setting up OOPS protection to go to back up to this savings account in the event that, there's not enough to cover the debts, because Navy Federal is really slow at processing things. So a lot of people, like I've heard, they're like, well, I thought that already came out of my account. And then here it is processing like a few days later when they've like moved money around or spent other money. So it's just their processing time's a lot slower than some people are used to. So it's caused people to get overdrafts, but just make sure you have that OOPS protection set up. And, I haven't really noticed a big difference between like a regular checking account and like their flagship checking account, just to be honest. I would probably just maybe get like a high yield savings account with them. Make sure you have the overdraft protection. If you can do like a high limit pledge loan with them, that would be great, because Essentially, you just have to have that money in your savings account, and they will take a loan out against it, put that money into your checking account, and then you just wait like a month or, maybe 60 days, and then just pay it down to, 10%, pay like 90% of it. And then you can just set up like small auto pay for a few dollars a month, maybe like $5 a month, right? Because you don't want it to close too soon. You also want that balance to come down just a bit every month. You won't have a payment due for a long time, but the goal is to kind of keep that account open for like 24 months, just so you can inherit that payment history.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And they love CD accounts, so like I was saying before, CDs aren't, great for everyone because the money's not going to be accessible to you. But if you do have a little money to put into a CD, that would be great, or just put that money into like a high yield savings account. But, just ultimately trying to focus on getting 5 or more banking products with them, and never get the overdraft, and always make sure you got that overdraft protection set up.
Who do they mainly go with? Credit bureau? That is?
TransUnion.
They use Trans. Okay.
On the personal side, they primarily pull just from TransUnion. On the business side, they usually pull from Experian. And then the pledge loan does not require a credit pull either. So that's kind of nice. You can get a credit product from, essentially a credit union, which is a grade A trade line, and, quality, because that's what we're looking for, quality, without a credit inquiry. So it's a win-win for a lot of people.
Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to change this because we can no longer load our prepaid cards, so I'm going to have to take that out. They changed that last month, unfortunately. I was so sad, but I think a lot of people were taking advantage of it and then not being able to pay it back. So I think that's kind of what happened. And, those type of things, it's like sometimes it's better if it's just not available for certain people, or to us, period, because some people will, do it, and, they're in a desperate situation, and then they have a hard time paying it back. And I'll tell you, Navy Federal is not the bank that you want to play with when it comes to this debt stuff, because they're giving, but they're also like super strict on their debt. And if you do get into debt with them, you have to pay it back 100% if you ever want to get funding with them in the future. So it's a tough one.
Can I piggyback real quick on the oops and Navy Fed?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of found out about oops and Navy Fed through another credit guy on social. And obviously, and sometimes I love the way you go about it, because you're kind of keeping it up on the straight, but it made it sound like, well, it has oops. And then obviously if you overdraft it, you've got like 30 days, to pay it back. How does that affect it? Because an example, I do have, I think both. I had both a flagship and savings, but I wasn't using it as a primary account. I did have like a partial direct deposit in there.
Okay.
And it went over once, and it didn't. I don't think they charged me anything, even though there wasn't really much in savings to cover. And I just got the notice, like, you got 30 days to pay it back or whatever. Does that still affect? That could still considered a ding?
Yes.
I almost got into a habit of doing that. I'm like, well, that's going to help me 3 more days to get to, payday. And
yeah, you don't want to let that happen, because that is not something that is a positive for your internal scoring system with them.
Right.
Like you getting your account negative, even though they're like really lenient about it and they understand, it's not good for your internal scoring system. So you really don't ever want to let your accounts fall like below, a certain threshold, like whatever your spending is. Like if you typically spend $50 or more, you don't want to let your account get lower than $50.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to always keep that little bit of cushion in there, and then, have the overdraft protection with the intention of, I will probably never need this, because I want to make sure there's money in my account. But in the event that something does come through, it's there to protect me.
Yeah. I definitely need to start being more diligent about how I treat these relationships with the banks.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'll tell you, the guy that I was helping, like I got him a couple trade lines. His credit score was like all over 700. Everything looked good. And he was denied for an auto loan from Navy Federal. And when it boiled down to it, it was really because, he had so many overdrafts in his bank account that his internal scoring system or score was just no good with them. Like he has to focus on, I told him this too, he has to focus on just never letting the account go negative, just never, ever, ever.
And that still could kind of be worked back up with them. The scoring.
Yeah, absolutely. You can earn brownie points with them by opening up more banking products with them and, just kind of, building back up to it. Every month you stay positive. Every month there's no overdrafts. Every month you're doing a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and say you do a pledge loan with them and start paying that on time. Those are good ways to really build up a positive relationship with them so they'll get to trust you in the future with credit products.
Great, thanks for all the info.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have another question.
Sure.
If would you suggest we block or lock one of the other bureaus' reports if we wanted to kind of exclusively use, like, say I want to use Experian, I wanted to Chase, and I know they use Experian for their business credit cards.
Yes.
If I were to lock TransUnion and Equifax, would that harm me in some way? Or?
It could, because Chase has started pulling credit from, and it kind of depends on the location, but I've had a few people where they have pulled Experian and TransUnion, and they were like, well, I wasn't prepared for them to pull TransUnion, but if you have that locked, it might result in them denying you, because Chase is kind of so finicky like that. They're like, well, what do you have that you're hiding,
Yeah.
But, in some states, like I'm here in California, for me, they did not pull any other bureau. They just pulled Experian on both personal and business side. So it can vary by location. If you don't have anything to hide, I wouldn't play with Chase, and I would just leave TransUnion and Experian both open, just in the event that they pull both. It's like, I don't have nothing to hide. But if you are working with like another bank that exclusively just pulls one bureau, then you can absolutely leave the other two locked, because you're not anticipating them to pull it. And that's another reason why it's kind of better to deal with Chase in person, because say, for example, you're like, well, I keep my credit reports locked unless I know that I'm applying for something. And you can ask the rep right in front of you, like, hey, I keep my credit reports locked. I just wanted to verify, like, you guys are just going to pull from Experian, correct? Because I'm going to unlock my credit reports so you guys can do your thing.
True.
And if they say, oh, sorry, we pulled TransUnion, we couldn't access it. Well, I asked you who you're going to pull from because I told you I have to unlock it. So it might be another like hard inquiry that you'll have to endure, because they'll have to pull it again. But, at least you can explain like, well, I just asked you,
Yep. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Chase is like one of those banks that is a little funny about certain things. They're very sensitive to new accounts, especially revolving credit cards. So they have, the 524 rule where, if you've opened up more than 5 revolving accounts in the last 24 months, they will most likely deny you for a credit card. Sometimes I feel like they look at the installment loans. Like if you're just got excessive installment loans, especially like in the last 24 months, then they could potentially deny you for that. But, what they're primarily looking for is credit card shoppers. They don't want to give their credit cards to people who have, opened a bunch of credit cards in the last 2 years. So just be mindful of that. And that's why I tell people, focus on quality and not quantity, because say you are like, well, I'm rebuilding my credit, so I'm just going to get a bunch of these credit builders. I'm going to get Kickoff and I'm going to get, all these cards. Well, that's not a good thing for Chase, because they're going to look at all of those as brand new opened credit accounts, and they could count against your 5 accounts in the last 24 months. So you don't want to waste that. And you really don't want those type of credit builders anyways. You want real financial institutions that other banks are going to look at and go, oh yeah, well, shoot, Navy Fed gave them this. Sure, we'll give them that, because they're in competition with each other.
Mm. I received an invite from Chase for a business Sapphire card.
Oh, okay, cool.
Just under a month ago. I didn't act on it. And so that's why you see me asking all these questions about Chase.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's normal. Do you have a bank account with them?
No.
No, just and was the invite via email or?
Email. It was
email.
Yeah.
Are you on an authorized user with anybody from Chase?
Yes.
Okay, so that's how they got your info. Okay, well, that makes sense. In your credit score with Vantage, I think what they do is they will start advertising, like a lot of these other banks, like soon as they see someone's credit score is like 680 or above or close to like 700 with like a pre-screen, they'll start marketing to you to apply for their credit cards. It doesn't mean that it's guaranteed approval, but it's always a good sign, because they're reaching out to you to apply. And so you can potentially go through the pre-approval process with them and see, if you can get to the final step where they're asking you whether or not you want to accept the card. And, sometimes I'm surprised with Chase, so I never tell someone like not to apply, because even if you apply and you're denied, you can apply again in, 90 days. So, I was denied before I got approved. And for their business credit card, I used all of my home address. Like it was all home address, home phone number, or, my mobile phone number. So all that stuff is like totally easy with Chase Business. It's crazy to think that some people like charge 10% or 15% to get people approved for a Chase credit card, and then, whatever they get approved on, they take, 10%. It's like, for an application?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's crazy. Even though it's 0%, like you're already off to like a significant amount of debt because someone helped you get someone filled out an application for you, basically, because they have no control whether you're approved or denied, They just know the data that gets a lot of people approved. And honestly, that's just the revenue spot of it. So they just inflate everyone's revenue and, put numbers that are closer to like 750,000 because they know that Chase isn't going to ask for proof of income. The whole relationship manager thing changed a lot of things back in, I want to say it was like July or so, because they used to have like all these relationship managers that could help anyone, no matter where they were located, get like all these high limit Chase business credit cards. And they were using like a PDF application. And then all of a sudden they realized, oh man, like all these people are getting, clients from outside of their territory. So they changed it. And there's no more PDF applications. There's no more DocuSign. All of the business relationship managers are forced to use the same online application. And they have restricted them to their territory only. And in some cases, they'll allow those reps to help people outside of their territory. But those if they are approved to help them, their revenue has to be closer to like $1 million.
Whoa.
Yeah. So you'll see a lot of Chase reps say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You'll need to go to visit your local Chase branch and work with your local, business relationship manager. because that's just how it is, but they could still help you as long as you're transparent with them on what you're looking for, why, you have all of your business documents presentable, like your certificate of good standing, your letter from the IRS, like you have everything totally ready, presented to them. Like there's no way that they can, deny who you are, what business you're with, and let them know you have a lot of business expenses that you have to do every month.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions before we wrap things up for this evening, guys? I'm going to update these letters probably by tomorrow with the titles of them, because I realized some people might not realize what these are for. And of course, now I'm like, oh, I kind of got out of order, but they're in there. The dispute letters are in there, so you can certainly use these. And there are more that are actually in there. So if you go to the sample dispute letter template, let me take this out of here. How do I get this? Add page in folder. Let me see, move. I don't know how. Okay, I guess I'll just have to move that up there. But these ones are formatted for Credit Repair Cloud as well. They're much longer, so that's why I always tell everyone, pop them into ChatGPT and tell it to make it a shorter, direct, to the point letter for, like, say your first letter to the credit bureaus or your second letter to the credit bureaus. Because essentially the way that you do it is, first letter, which is just basic dispute. And then second is, hey, method of which you verified this. How did you verify this? Who did you verify this with? Third letter is, hey, I'm going to proceed with litigation because this is my third attempt to correct these errors, and you are still ignoring my request. And then fortunately, if they just continue to ignore your request, you might just have to take them through the arbitration process. Or if you want to pay the debt, you can always do that as well. But, every situation is a little bit different. And I tell someone, if you've been fighting something for over a year, chances are you're probably going to have to pursue litigation or arbitration, or even speak with a consumer lawyer to see if they can find any blatant violations on your credit report that they might be able to handle. But again, working with a consumer lawyer that, is not charging any money is going to be, a process. It's not a fast process. So sometimes if you're looking for speed, doing it yourself is going to be a lot more speedier, especially if you go through the arbitration process yourself. And then once you go through it, you can help other people go through it, because it's not hard. It's actually a very easy process. And like I said before, a lot of the credit bureaus, they just delete the trade line before you even get to that point. So you got the end result that you're looking for. All right, everyone. Well, hey, thanks for being on the call tonight. I appreciate everyone being here. Let me see if I have any things here. Okay, so Chin, you said, how do you get access to this Canva folder? Inside the classroom section, we have a little area that is for all of our ebooks. And if you go into there, this is a ton of different ebooks that you can access inside of here. And I'll add the Navy Federal one in here as well. And then I also have another section in here where you can create your own digital products inside of Canva. Create your own digital products. And for example, the Inquiry Express, if you just open this in your Canva file, oh man, I'll have to go through these and make sure that they are working. I don't know if I'm logged into the wrong account or what, but normally you'll be able to just click on it and make a copy inside of your profile. And I don't know why it's doing this, but I'll check these later and make sure that they're working, because it should just say use template in a new design, and then you can create the book inside of your own Canva account. But I think I'm logged into the wrong account or something. Oh yeah, I think I am, and I can't see because I have this little icon right here, which is, hold on a second. Let me make sure this is working now. Huh, that's weird. Well, I'll figure out. I think it's because I'm logged into like a wrong one. Yeah, I think that's why. Yes, it should open like this, and then use this brand template, and then you make a copy of it. You can just go to File, make a copy, and then that will be saved inside of your Canva account. So you can basically use this ebook in your business, reformat it, and kind of, just use these digital products in your business. But I'll check all of these tomorrow and go over them. But yeah, definitely go in here and create some ebooks for your business and yourself.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everyone, it was great seeing you all, and I'll see you again